Oh my god. It's so hard to write a fader. It's so hard to write a fader on an actual like browser. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's a mouse problem probably. It's most definitely a mouse problem. But yeah, it can be really hard to write it. I know how to write a fader. Don't get me wrong, okay? People can attest to this. I'm a fader writer. I know how to write that fader, okay? But if it's a fader with a mouse, all bets are off. All bets are off. I probably need a mouse pad too, right? To properly write that fader. Anyway, chat, we got some really interesting content for you, right? So I promised you a conspiracy about me, okay? And we got one for you. I thought that maybe this was just Samantha Bananas, like Samantha Weird Champa's, you know, bizarre idea, but somebody actually went ahead and wrote the no comment chick is plural theory down in a manifesto, you know, like a twit longer, you know, like where you say what's wrong with a person. And apparently what was wrong with me is that I'm mentally ill in a really specific way, which would normally take a mental health professional to diagnose. But luckily for us, we have two intrepid ex-mods pretending to be intersectional leftists while diagnosing me with some kind of a, you know, DID, or I don't know, something that includes multiple personalities. Listen, I gotta say this in the right way, all right? Because I don't want to give anybody the impression that I'm running away from this because I think that there's something wrong with plurality, that I look down on systems, right? I'm here for systems, but I'm not one. And the fact that somebody would try to concoct a theory, and really what this comes down to, chat, is something that we're going to talk about later when we get into the conspiracies proper, right? So I'm going to give you a little bit of my conspiracy, a little bit of the conspiracy about me, right? I'm going to explain what these mods contrived and kind of why they contrived it too, because their claims are just out there, right? Like, in order to do all the things that they've accused me of doing, I would have to be a Quetzalcoatl cat girl. What I mean is that, like, one person wouldn't be able to achieve these things. And I don't know if somehow they think that, like, if they think that plurals are like, you know, Tyler Durden, Ed Norton, where you actually split into two people and each of those people can do separate things, because that's the kind of thing it would take, right? But they needed their theory. They needed their weird champ theory. They needed their bizarre allegations to hold together. And the only way that they were able to do that was by speculating, I mean, she seems really nice. She doesn't seem like somebody who's going to say the N-word in your DMs. She doesn't seem like somebody who wants to dress up in blackface to interview, you know. But what if Irene's system? And what if her personalities don't know about each other? These people basically concocted some weird ass Fight Club theory, and it's written down. This is the thing that's funny, is it's not something that I screenshot. It's not something from a Discord comment. It's not something from DMs that got leaked or anything like that. It is something that they put out to try to hurt me. And you might run into this, right? And if you want a sneak preview of what's in there, because like it's a very slow read. It's a very slow read, which starts out complaining about the fact that I played Final Fantasy 13-1 without continuing on to 13-2. So that sets the tone right there. You know, we're talking about the important stuff first. The video games that I sometimes play, right? And then moving on to like mischaracterizing the plot of Persona 2. Yeah, you get this description of Persona 2 as if you're in a world that is horrible and miserable, and that the only way to escape is, you know, through like suicide. If anything, that sounds more like Persona 3, but that actually doesn't really describe any of the Persona series. That's a pretty fucking dark video game, and it's definitely not Persona 2, right? There's no suicide and persona. Oh, that was the other thing. They claimed that I was suicidal, right? I got all this fucking diagnosis from X mods, right? You get demodded and then you feel, I don't know, emboldened to diagnose your streamer. That's some weird shit. And it doesn't sound like what a leftist would do. But then again, none of the stuff that these people have done since they've left have been things that a leftist would do, right? They went right to right-wing content creators to try to get them to do hit pieces on them, successfully got them to do it, actually skeeved them out to the degree where the right-wing content creators, the debate bro content creators, backed off, felt burned, felt lied to, felt deceived. And, it's just been a shit show ever since. And, the fact that, like, it's so much later and these people are still, upset about being demodded, really, it's not great. Let's just say it's definitely, it's not great. But yeah, that's the conspiracy about, and it kind of harkens back to, if anybody remembers, there was an egg discourse around Philosophy Tube. So if you don't know, Philosophy Tube is a trans creator who actually came out after having made a lot of content and become really popular. And there were some people, Xander Hall being the most prominent, who speculated prior to Abigail coming out that she might be trans, right? The word egg was used, right? And the problem with this is that, like, nobody likes their gender speculated about, just like nobody likes their mental health speculated about. And it's, it's not nice, and it should be avoided. I mean, I could see why, Xander Hall would think that he didn't do it with any, I guess he didn't do it with any malice, but that doesn't soften the impact, basically. And it's a really similar dynamic. It's a really similar kind of thing that these mods are doing to what Xander Hall did, and that's, par for the course, since they've acted basically like debate bros ever since they left. And I don't know what to say, but yeah, we'll give you a little bit more of that. Okay, so I haven't talked about what happened in November very much, but I think it is time to start talking. There's a lot of trauma surrounding that, just so you understand. Like, these are people that I cared about a lot, and people that I still care about, and people that it hurts me to see them trying to get me hurt. At this point, we can say trying to get me physically hurt, right? And they've already, put my, my financial situation at risk. They've already, put my reputation at risk, but they've sort of crossed the Rubicon at this point. And, I don't know what to do, right? Because I think that they're not doing great. Okay, if you understand what I'm saying. Dealing with COVID is really hard. Probably dealing with getting demodded was really hard for them, and they're not dealing with that very well. And so, like, despite the amount of vitriol that I've gotten from them, I still do care about them, and I don't want, and that's why you're not going to hear their names, right? But I do want to talk about this more, and we'll probably do that through Patreon only content, right? Because, like, this is stuff that, I don't really want this becoming a drama. Like I said, I don't want, if you know who I'm talking about, don't bother them. Okay? They're, they have, just like I have, faced a lot of harassment and a lot of trolling. Being a mod for NCC tends to do that to you, right? And, like, it's difficult to deal with, and I had trouble dealing with. I was only really able to deal with it and come through that due to the support network that I have. But for people that don't have that support network, and I think sadly that's the case here. Sadly, whatever support networks might have been in place for these people have failed them, and it shows. It shows in I guess they would call it content, but I'm thinking at this point that it borders on obsession. And, it stopped being like fun fan fiction, copy pasta, headcanon a long time ago. I'm legitimately worried for these people. And, you know, I don't want anybody to, you know, like, you know, understand that I'm still protective of these people. Okay. So if you know who I'm talking about, please don't do anything to bother them. Right. They're, I just hope that they'll get the help that they need, honestly. So anyway, chat, on to the real content for today. You didn't think it was all about me, did you? Yeah, we gave you a little bit of Catgirl conspiracy, okay? But that's all you get for right now. The rest is going to have to be on Patreon, right? We'll talk more about Catgirl conspiracy and all the rest, because there's some really interesting content that's been, you know, made about me, and you know, I gotta watch it somewhere. Yeah, it makes sense to do it on Patreon, because like I said, I'm not trying to start any drama. I'm not trying to, you know, make money off of this sad situation. I'm not trying to turn any vulnerable people into content. And I do think of them as vulnerable people. So, yeah. But anyway, chat, let's get on to it. We are watching Sophie from Mars today. Actually, you know what? Before we even get to that, let's take a look right here. I believe we've got where did this go? I'm gonna have to open this again. We've got a video from our very own Impact Suspect mod for my YouTube and Twitch channel, and so we're gonna be talking about, yeah, there's Caleb Maupin by Impact Suspect, and you can follow them right here. Let me just go ahead and do this. Let me do right by my mods for once. Yeah, copy the link and go back here, and then, oh my god. But yeah, so we're gonna be watching Sophie from Mars video about conspiracies, and that includes some stuff about Caleb Maupin, and it was pointed out to me that our very own Impact Suspect also made a video about Caleb Maupin, so I thought it would be a good time to view that content. Oh yeah, where am I? I'm like, where am I going here? Like, seriously? Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna put it in the gonna put it in the chat. There it goes, right in the chat. That is Impact Suspect's channel. You can check out the creator of this video that we're about to watch if you are so inclined, and I would encourage you to do so. Because I think Impact Suspect makes really good content, and I have definitely laughed a lot at Impact's videos. So here we go.
Disclaimer, the people depicted in this video are fictional and
I put it on fast. I put it on fast, didn't I? No, it's normal. It's normal.
Who is Caleb Maupin? If you are one of the many people interested in awesome people today,
I am indeed.
You've probably heard of Caleb Maupin. A journalist, political analyst, a TV personality.
On RT, right?
Caleb Maupin
yeah.
Naturally formed as a member of the working class in 1987. His father, an upper management banker, took him all over the world on business trips.
Stellaris?
So he knows how
you want me to play
works.
Stellaris? That sounds like fun.
Room service in Marriott hotels. As a good socialist, he always gave tips to the room service. To further his working class experience, he worked at Burger King for 2 days.
Impact, I got a question. Did Caleb Maupin go to private school? If so, did he ever get kicked out of said private school, have some kind of existential crisis, and then move across the country with his brother? Did that ever happen? Did he ever scratch out any curse? What I'm wondering is, chat, is Caleb Maupin somebody that wants to be a catcher in the rye, right? And catch those kids before they fall over the cliff. Was that Caleb Maupin, or am I thinking of someone else?
He first rose to prominence when he walked out of college. He once
There we
filmed some
go!
people of
There's
color
our Holden
being beat up
Caulfield!
by police.
There he is!
Then he got a
Wait,
haircut
what?
and gave
Oh,
a
I don't
tip
know about some of
because
this.
socialism. Then he fought off the hyper-capitalist aliens from planet Goldman 6 single-handedly. Then he worked secretly 50 years for an occult socialist cabal of superheroes alongside Alexander Dugin. Cleveland Scene magazine described him as chatty and affable.
Oh, he's from Cleveland. Okay.
When it comes to his YouTube
Oh my
channel,
god.
he did
Chatty
his
and
homework.
affable.
He knows dates, facts, places, circumstances, other attributes, and stuff. And he did an Occupy Wall Street too. Caleb Maupin co-produced the Zeitgeist video. Since then, his writing is translated in a number of languages. The number is 1.
The music is perfect, yeah.
He debated the Nemeic lion to death once.
The Nemeic
He
client?
called the cops on the Hydra of Lana. He bored the Corinthian stag to sleep with class
So this is
reductionism.
like some Herculean feats that he's doing,
He got
kind
his
of?
laptop stolen by the Arominthian boar.
Okay.
He gave a big tip to the guys that cleaned the stable of Augiras. He stole the belt of Amazon queen Hippolyte. He defeated some other
Rude.
animals too, and also a
Rude.
giant, if you must know, so he is in all but paperwork a Greek god. now.
Basically. Yeah, well, I mean, looks like a Greek
Maupin
god.
was one of the hobbits that destroyed the One Ring. Caleb Maupin is also a hidden werewolf. He recycles
Don't tell Gandalf.
voluntarily. Caleb Maupin could have got in any house, but he chose Hufflepuff. He was 3 different James Bonds in the 90s. Today he works at Russia Today, a Russian state TV station for
Not
the
anymore.
English-speaking world.
Update, not anymore.
He might be Superman. We don't know.
We don't know. I mean, can you prove that he's not?
Subscribe his YouTube because we put a lot of money.
Oh my
in
god,
this
call to
video
action.
To get you to like
Call to
this
action.
person.
Hey, but really
We're not
subscribe
quite
impacts.
sure what to tell you. I don't know. He shits gold.
Probably.
He's chatty and affable.
He's magically delicious, isn't he?
So who's next?
Who's
Is
next?
this Abby Shapiro?
Oh my god.
Sure.
Oh my god, I love the who is. Oh my god. So yeah, everybody go follow
Like and
Impact Suspect,
subscribe.
and maybe even in the comments you could comment on this video if you wanted, and you could encourage Impact to do more who is videos, because I like this. I think this was perfect. I think this is like on, like it's like there's a zone and this is right in the zone, right? You know, like the colored regions of my brain's maps, it's right there. It's right there. It's so good. Okay, so Sophie from Mars. Let's take a look at some conspiracies here. Yeah, since I'm somebody who knows about conspiracies, since like people love to make ones about me, and they're so much more interesting than the actual me. That's what I can't get over. Is this person that they've created, like I still can't imagine them. I still feel like they're a bit of a Mary Sue, okay? I still feel like the character that's been created, the character that's able to harass all of Twitch while making hit pieces on everyone out there, while collecting data, collecting folders, and still keeping a full-time streaming schedule and putting out videos. Like, that's a really interesting person. I can't even imagine this person, right? Like, I feel like if I met this person, I'd be crushed. Because she's so much more interesting than I am, right? She's so much more interesting than I could ever be. But that is the the NCC that exists in the imaginations, in the hearts of children, in the hearts of those with the will, the imagination to dream about the NCC that could potentially exist in some universe, if not this one, right? Unlike Samantha Banana, unfortunately, though, I am not a multi-dimensional being that you know, pops in and out of this universe in all my forms constantly. But there's the video right there. Conspiracy on the left. Callback to Abigail's wonderful video about firefighters, and if you know what that means, then yeah, you get it, right? We're fighting fire today, okay? Because I'm a pyromaniac, and my veins are full of gas. It's, yeah, I mean, your veins, my veins, whoever's veins, right? What I am saying is I am immune, wildfire, because of you, wildfire. I'm fireproof, wildfire, because of you. So thank you so much, those out there that made me fireproof. I feel a lot safer now, and I have you to thank. And yeah, you did kind of try to burn me, but you weren't successful, and what you created is so much stronger than who I was before. So thank you. I truly, deeply, from the bottom of my heart, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for you. You've actually, I think I literally have more, you know, reach, influence, potential, possibilities because of your intervention, although it seemed to be geared towards destroying and crushing me, right? I guess when you fail at something like that, you end up making the target of that harassment stronger. So thank you. Seriously, it means a lot. And you're a comrade without even trying. Oh my God!
We don't penalize pets for getting older, and we don't penalize.
Oh my
pets
God! What is this? I got a fucking ad. This hasn't happened in forever. Oh my God! Ad block. Ad block. Ad block.
Let's talk about conspiracy theories.
Oh.
So it's current year. We've lived through a lot together now, haven't we?
I
Cracks
suppose.
are really starting to show, and the contradictions are sharpening. I think everyone's finally on the same page. Capitalism's got to go, and it's time to build big, sexy communism. And it's all going just swimmingly. Us commies have firmly cemented our ideas as the hot new thing, the punk rock ideology. Everybody wants a piece. And the good news is, under communism, everybody can have a piece. But being so popular isn't all just a walk in the park. It does come with its own problems. This essay is going to be about growth and division. What happens when social groups get bigger? First, though, let's get some context. In the 60s and 70s in the US, intelligence agencies worked hard to undermine, disband, and destroy leftist organizations. Even mutual aid networks that were just working to give food to the hungry and shelter to the homeless. Groups like the Black Panthers were labeled the biggest domestic threat to national security, and then all their leaders started winding up dead. With leftist revolutionary groups on the retreat, the FBI weren't idle. They weren't happy to just push leftists off the table. They wanted to own the whole restaurant. Is that a good metaphor? So they started writing their own leftist theory to spread in radical circles, encouraging reformist ideas and driving focus away from government surveillance and intelligence and onto the mainstream media. They even made up a guy. The FBI fabricated an entire academic publication history dating back through the 50s, and then had their fictitious academic start publishing these subversive books teaching leftists how the mainstream media manipulates the population. This was a huge boon for the intelligence community for a few reasons. Firstly, as previously mentioned, it drew attention away from government agencies as the enemies of the left. It taught people what the media was doing in terms of market forces, rather than actively malicious campaign of misinformation. But, and this is crucial, it fit in really neatly with existing conspiracy theories. They control the media. They were banking on there being enough anti-Semites in radical circles that this would cause a huge schism while driving all energy and attention away from organizing and direct action. However, they knew their academics' credibility would quickly wane without public appearances. So they took all their publications and attributed them to one of their undercover agents who'd already been infiltrating leftist circles for over a decade. An agent by the name of Noam Chomsky. Okay, no, Obviously, that was all nonsense. Noam Chomsky is categorically not an undercover FBI agent. I was telling you a little story that I made up to illustrate some points about how conspiracy theories work. During that story, at some point, most of you realized what was happening, but at what point? How much did you believe up until that point? Some of what I said was actually true. Some of it was based on real things that have happened. Do you know which parts? I'm speaking to tens of thousands of people right now, not to brag, and if I hadn't said this was all made up, some of you would have believed me. Some of you even are smaller content creators who would have cited this video and repeated what I said uncritically. Some people, even now that I've...
Some might be larger content creators that would do the same thing. I don't think that's restricted to smaller content creators.
Told you it's made up, are at home going, I bet it's real though. She says it's fake, but I wouldn't put it past them.
That's how they get you. That's how they get you. Because Sophie is obviously doing this in order to, yeah, like, isn't there a right-wing, I can't remember what they call it, but I've heard right-wing, like, QAnon types hypothesize, or state as fact, really, that the movies are used to introduce concepts to us of events that will transpire later so that we don't freak out when those events, like, so in other words, there's something that we should react to with being up in arms, like, against the government or whatever, but we won't because it got portrayed in a movie and now we think it's normal, something like that, right, chat? Like, there's like this theory, and they'll look at, you know, movies that, you know, where something happened in the movie and then later on in real life something happened, and they'll say that's, you know, suspicious, right? I can't remember what it's fucking called, but this is, yeah, one of the you know, sort of tropes that you'll find in conspiracy culture.
Criticisms of Chomsky that people do have, so that people predisposed to dislike him would be more likely to buy in, and
just like the people predisposed to disliking NCC might be more likely to buy into trolls saying the N-word in their DMs, claiming to be me, actually being me. The weird ass idea that I would troll somebody with an alt and yet lead them to believe that they were indeed talking to me for some reason, even though that's not in any way beneficial to me, right? This is the thing, is that if you do have the NCC hate in our heart, or, you know, hate for anyone, you can bypass the normal logic checks. Like, could one person rationally be doing all of this? You know, could, you know, is this even possible, right? Some of those things that you should kind of like check, right? You know, and I'm talking about basic things. I'm not talking about like looking into it. I'm not talking about, you know, like doing your own research or whatever. I'm just talking about a very cursory look, right, at a, you know, proposition that you should sort of run through certain like logic filters. And if it doesn't pass, eject, yeet, vent that sussy baka. But there's so many people that when the subject of the claims is somebody or something that they hate, will forego those steps in order to just arrive at the conclusion that the allegations are valid and correct and need to be signal boosted, right?
Here's a nice, big, juicy, important point. What does buy in mean? I didn't say believe. I said buy in. Because a lot of the traction and momentum that conspiracy theories need to spread comes from people who don't
Chad Alpha's noticing many Q beliefs came out of crappy sci-fi movies.
think they actually believe in the conspiracy, just because they don't believe in 100% of what they're told. It works a lot like paranormal investigation shows. Most of the audience sit there going, I can't believe other people are buying this crap. Real ghosts don't even look like that. And only a relatively small amount of the audience are at home going, oh, I fucking knew Abraham Lincoln's ghost killed JFK. This show fucking rules.
Oh my god. Meow.
Hey, welcome back to Fire Safety Lessons. As many of you know, the anti-fire department has been busier than ever lately. Yes, there have been more fires to fight, but also there's been a huge uptick in new volunteers. Not all the new volunteers are quite as anti-fire as I'd personally prefer, though. Some people say they're anti-fire, and turn around and try and recruit arsonists into the department. Some people don't even claim to be anti-fire at all. But most worryingly, some people have been saying that the fire isn't even real. And that is really scary. Because as much as I love the department, I have to admit, we like to think of ourselves as fireproof. And the truth is, we're not.
Out of the sewer, literal vampire pot-bellied goblins are hobbling around coming after us. Literal vampire
Conspiracy theories have been fascinating to me for as long as I can remember. They have this bizarre relationship to reality which makes them just tantalizing. First learning what wacky bullshit some people believe.
A crossover, right?
Which parts are gibberish and which parts are true, or at least based in the truth.
Meow.
It's like an enticing puzzle. It's like a cryptic crossword where every answer turns out to be, sooner or later, the Jews. Imagine my
basically
finding myself being a transgender leftist YouTuber,
Goblin mode,
simultaneously a member of several groups about which people believe all sorts of nonsense.
Oh my god!
What a treat!
Oh my god!
Lots of you are here to hear about wacky cranks and the fun.
And chat, like she's saying, sometimes the fire is coming from inside the house, right? Sometimes these weird, fascist modes of thinking, you're gonna find left-wingers practicing them, just like what I described earlier, right? With the ableist stuff that I got from aggrieved X mods, right? Speculating that I might be plural as if that was a bad thing, as if that was like a well, first of all, like, yeah, trans people are mentally ill. That's a trope. That's a trope, right? So you're gonna reinforce that trope. You're going to speculate about somebody's mental illness. And remind you, these are people that call themselves intersectional leftists. I don't see how they do, though, right? But yeah, and then on top of that, like adding a pejorative to a group that's basically the bully's dish du jour. Like, I don't know another group that's like more picked on the internet per capita, I guess, than plurals, right? And it is, kind of an emerging phenomenon. The fact that somebody claiming to be an intersectional leftist would add to that pejorative, it disgusts me. And to think that I ever had these people on my mod team, frankly, disgusts me. I am not trying to create an environment that reinforces ableism. Quite to the contrary. Quite to the contrary. And if any of you ever, suffered because of, that's the kind of moderation I had in the past, I'm sorry. Okay? That was my fault. I made some really bad choices. And I think I know why. I think I understand why. And I've been, getting help to learn to maintain the kind of boundaries, where I won't end up with people who can't help but cross those boundaries in the future, because with the issues that I have of asserting and maintaining those boundaries, it's just not a good fix. It's just not a good mix.
Things they believe in, and I'm looking forward to it as much as you are. But we really ought to learn a thing or two about how conspiracy belief works before we can talk about any of that. So Richard Hofstadter is a name that comes up a lot in the academic writing about conspiracy theories, and I would know because I've read it all. I wouldn't normally do this much reading for a project, but conspiracy belief is a relatively new and small emerging field, and
field of study.
I read it for fun. I really like conspiracy theories. Hofstadter wrote the OG essay in the field of conspiracy research, The Paranoid Style in American Politics.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, nobody gave a fuck. Because unlike me and my cool friends, no one really cared about conspiracy theories until American conservatives started living in a noticeably different reality to American liberals. America is going to be absolutely inescapable in this discussion, not just because the biggest conspiracy movements are there, and therefore most thought about modern conspiracism is also centered there,
but also cause America.
But as Hofstadter pointed out, the style of politics and practice over there across the pond
America,
is very nurturing conspiracy theories.
America, yeah.
On that shortly. Hofstadter's original essay.
There's your theme song for America, Sophie.
Here because as
Don't say I never gave you anything.
He says paranoid style, he means that the political style of conspiracism resembles the behavior of someone clinically diagnosed as paranoid. And while I think the metaphor is apt, I think the way that he writes, the paranoid thinks this, the paranoid does that, is kind of tasteless. Nonetheless, as Hofstadter writes, style has more to do with the way in which ideas are believed than the truth or falsity of their content. So, let's learn about the ways in which conspiracy...
Yeah, much in the same way that you hear a lot of people talking about narcissism as, like, you know, the narcissist. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? We've all heard this kind of thing, and it applies to a lot of different, you know, diagnoses.
Conspiracy theories are believed. In
America, 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 America,
and Karen M. Douglas set out 4 things to understand about conspiracism.
Take note, intrepid investigator. These are your 4 rules to help you find up from down when you're all the way down the rabbit hole.
I love this. I unironically love this.
Conspiracy belief is universal.
In other words, there is no demographic that is immune to conspiracy belief. There is no divide in race, gender, or politics that would tell us more reliably who is likely to believe in conspiracy theories implicitly. This one is interesting already, because although you've clicked on this video and you've already watched this far, a lot of you are probably thinking, hang on, Sophie, conspiracy theories are for right-wingers. Not so. Conspiracy theories are for everyone. Yay! For instance, about 60% of Americans today believe that JFK was killed by a conspiracy, rather than Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, and that percentage doesn't dramatically change much for any group, including Hillary Clinton voters in 2016 and Donald Trump voters in 2016. There's only a 2% difference between those, and believe me, 2% does not explain QAnon.
It's not even statistically significant. Like, it's
Americans agreed with the statement.
Not even a real difference, you know, in terms of
who run a child sex ring are trying to control our politics.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
For a bunch of reasons.
Oh my god.
Statistically agree
meow,
that it's true.
meow.
And they're probably right? But unlike me and my cool friends who go outdoors a healthy amount, most people didn't come to that conclusion by reading declassified CIA documents or looking at bullet trajectories. Most people believe that JFK was killed by a conspiracy because...
2. Conspiracy belief is emotional.
It can be easy to assume that because conspiracy theorists love to pull out facts and minute details...
This is actually really good.
Conspiracy belief must be rooted in analytical thinking, but actually it's rooted in intuitive thinking, that is to say, emotional thinking. We tend to believe things happened not based on the facts we're told, but based on normative similarity, other people around us think it's true, and historical similarity. It fits in with the things we already know about history. On that...
Okay, so what I'm getting from this, and this is something I've noticed too, is people are really good at recognizing patterns, okay? In a lot of ways, like, we survive by recognizing patterns. And, you know, patterns like in nature, you know, patterns in like the seasons, right? Notice that pattern, and then you're going to be a lot more successful at farming, right? For instance, right? So we've, you know, recognizing patterns is good, right? Is adaptive, let's just say, right? But when we start to apply this in like interpersonal situations, right? If you, like, let's say, have very limited experience with a certain group, with a certain identity, and maybe one experience that you have is negative, how easy is it to apply that negative experience to the entire group, right? It's almost natural, right? And I don't mean to, like, because there is a discourse that says that racism and bigotry and all that stuff are natural, and I don't find natural to be a particularly useful distinction, right? It's pretty synthetic, actually, if you pin it down, the concept of natural. But this is really common, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And look at, like, so she said normative similarity, and that is that, like, most people see a pattern. Wait a minute, let's find this back, because I want to get exactly what she's saying and see if I'm saying the same thing, because I'm not sure.
A conspiracy because
2. Conspiracy belief is emotional.
it can be easy to assume that because conspiracy theorists love to pull out facts and minute details to prop up their theories, conspiracy belief must be rooted in analytical thinking, but actually it's rooted in intuitive thinking, that is to say, emotional thinking. We tend to
so it sounds analytical, but it's emotional.
Believe things happened not based on the facts we're told, but based on normative similarity, other people around us think it's true, and historical similarity. It fits in with the things we already know about history. On that basis, leftists should actually be a lot more susceptible to conspiracy theories, because...
Okay, so normative similarity is, and I've talked about this too, right? This is how witch hunts start on Twitch politics, right? Witch hunts are a regular occurrence on Twitch politics, where all the content creators, or a lot of content creators in the space, will go after one person, and a lot of that is just the domino effect. You like people like Aiko, right? For instance, who seem nice, right? Seem like good people. When they perceive a lot of people to be saying, oh, no comment chick is bad, instead of standing with their friend in solidarity, will abandon that person, right? And, that's same thing with the conspiracy theory that I did all the trolling this summer. It was all me, as well as moving several times, being, kind of in an unstable housing situation, and keeping pretty much a full-time stream and YouTube upload schedule, right? So it's, not something that should pass the logic filter, and yet somehow it does. And one of those ways is what she's saying, normative similarity. Other people seem to believe so, and they're my friends, and if my friends believe a thing, it's probably true. Some people get by on just kind of going with the flow, right? And that might, make for less like social friction, but it also makes for getting dragged along into, what could be, real injustices, let's just say.
If the CIA is responsible for something called the Silent Holocaust, it's not hard to believe they're up to all sorts of horrifying crap. And because of that, we need to be really careful in these discussions to distinguish between things that we agree with politically and verifiable facts.
Don't read history, don't read theory, only vibes.
Which we will barely touch on today about how anxiety feeds into conspiracy belief, but it's more of a psychological approach, and today we need to be more sociological. That said, another reason that JFK is such an interesting case is that you can see...
Oh, let's get the music going. Let's get the crab ops.
When the first released their report, 87% of Americans did think Oswald acted alone. If you imagine someone who was a teenager when JFK was killed, who then lived through the next 60 years of American history, the assassination of MLK, the assassination of Bobby Kennedy, the Vietnam War, the whole of the 80s, the rise of the internet, 9/11, some pretty damn turbulent stuff has happened since JFK was killed. And the idea of an alternate reality where JFK got to live out his term and created a safe, happy, harmonious society does appeal to both progressive liberals and modern reactionaries. Now we should think about a mechanism by which the problem gets worse. If you believe things because people around you believe them, and because they fit in with the story of the world that you've been told, what happens when you already believe in conspiracy theories?
Subtitles, great idea.
Conspiracy theory comes along, which is similar.
Here is
content,
what you're listening to. Okay.
Bad guys.
And give Melody a sub as well.
And believes all the things
and a like.
you do.
And a
This is how
comment.
someone ends up believing in nothing but conspiracy theories.
Let's get
and
those,
it's an important feature of conspiracy belief.
Yeah, like that.
Conspiracy theories exist in what is called the cultic milieu.
Ooh.
Milieu.
Is that even spelled right? It always looks like it's spelled wrong.
Anyway,
I'm like, should it have two L's? I don't know. It's one of those words that always looks like it's spelled wrong.
Kind of wiggling around,
Chat.
vibing in the milieu,
I just took
feeding
my-
off the same audience of people.
I just took my
who are
shoes
really
off.
Into conspiracy theories.
I'm
And it's why
vibing.
someone
It's
who
safe
can
to
be
say,
described
chat.
As a conspiracy theorist,
Can you see this,
is
chat
unlikely to only
captions?
believe in one
I am currently
completely
vibing.
conspiracy theory. As Michael Bakun says in Culture of Conspiracy, and two men called Joseph say in American Conspiracy Theories, America has a particularly strong and vibrant cultic milieu. But that idea of someone whose entire reality is shaped by conspiracy theories is what leads us to the third
Shoes
principle.
are off.
3. Conspiracy
Balance
belief
is engaged.
consequential.
This is how we can start to distinguish between the entire 60% of Americans who believe Oswald wasn't acting alone and the proportion of people we would call conspiracy theorists. 60%
oh my God,
of
that's what I
Americans
wanted to do.
buy in to a JFK conspiracy theory, but for some smaller number of people, they live in a reality where JFK was definitely killed by the deep state, who
And it's known, it's proven, it's, you know, in the books, as they say, right?
also faked the moon landing, and also started the Vietnam War because they are reptilians from the Hollow Earth. And if you live in that reality, it is your moral obligation to do everything you can to fight the reptilian overlords and defend humanity. For a counterexample, if you believe that anthropogenic climate change is real, then it is your moral obligation to do everything you can to change the shape of global power to stop it, which is why many people who don't want to change the shape of global power choose to live in a reality where anthropogenic climate change is not real or not significant or not stoppable. The point is, conspiracy belief has consequences. Whether those consequences are refusing to recycle, publishing a book calling YouTubers CIA-funded shills, or your wife leaving you because you ask every transgender person you meet whether they're an adrenochrome-huffing demon. But the way we've been talking about conspiracy theories so far may not line up with people's observable reality. That it is the modern right wing, at least in the Anglosphere, who buy into, believe, and spread the majority of conspiracy theories. And that's why we need the fourth and final principle. That
4. Conspiracy belief is social.
I am about to say one of the, if not the, most important phrase in all of the conspiracy theory research.
I fucking
I've
love
read.
this.
So put your little listening ears on, you cutie patooties. Conspiracy theories reflect intergroup social conflicts. In other words, the exact reason that conspiracy theories arise is because two groups are conflicting and people on both sides don't have a complete picture of how or why. For instance, there is an intergroup social conflict between American conservatives and American liberals, and QAnon is a narrative that explains that conflict in terms that put American conservatives in the right. This is why it features so much projection. Claims that the social justice left are banning and burning books.
Just like we were talking about earlier with the X mods, this distortion that you see is a product of, I guess you could call it cope. The need to portray an unjust aggrievement, an invalid entitlement, right? As somehow a noble mission, as a conscientious whistleblower, right? Whistleblowers quit. When somebody gets fired and, you know, wants to harm the people that they were working with before because of that, I mean, that's got its own precedent, right? What do they call that in the, like, with, like, postal workers? Like, there's, like, a name for that, like, disgruntled. Yeah, that's a disgruntled former employee, not a conscientious whistleblower, right? But they want to see themselves as the latter rather than the former, because the former is not a light that anybody wants to be portrayed in. I mean, there is one easy way not to be portrayed in the former light, is to, I believe it's called moving on. And that is generally like the healthy way to proceed. But sometimes for a variety of reasons, people can't move on. And so instead of seeing themselves as disgruntled former employees with an inability to move on, they want to see themselves as the conscientious whistleblower. So they've got to make up a story. And if that involves, if that story requires them to take my personality and, you know, split it into multiplicity, split it into plurality, that, you know, if that's how it was, that would be fine. Like, I'd be proud of myself, right? If I was plural, but I'm not. And the fact that you had to do that abusive shit, publicly speculate about my mental health, and you were so off mark, that doesn't portray you in a really good light, right? And I would rather that you give up the cope. And I know that it's hard to accept that you've done something wrong, but you need to move forward. You need to stop hurting me. Because it's not right what you're doing. And I don't want to be talked about like that by anyone.
While censoring and banning the exact information literally burned by the actual Nazis. Hyper-focus on the liberal, pedophilic cabal while supporting Donald Trump, a notorious sexual abuser and alleged pedophile who supports other alleged pedophiles. The emotional truth being defended here is, well, even if we're bad, they're worse. When George Bush was in government, the conspiracy theory that 9/11 was an inside job was far more popular on the left than on the right, and far more popular outside of America than inside it. Like QAnon, this conspiracy theory provided a comforting narrative to leftists who saw the terror attacks as a consequence of American foreign policy. 9/11 was an inside job reflects the perspective that America spent decades bombing the Middle East, and the American government is not entirely without blame for 9/11. That's the thing about emotional truth. It doesn't always line up cleanly or comfortably with the reality with which you're being presented. And when that cognitive dissonance hits, a lot of people choose to lie to themselves.
And those are the tenets of conspiratorial belief.
About the last 10 standing. I believe you took conspiracy theory. You have to be men. I don't know. My father took a set. I should realize everything with mass hypnosis. You and I would not be more confident that you're a viable human.
Oh wait, because I'm sorry, I'm doing conflicting music, chat. I didn't realize.
By the way, the EU was set up by the Nazis. Volkswagen, I'm not against Volkswagen itself, but that was literally drawn, the first Volkswagen.
Why are we getting a rotoscope? This is so cool. Wait.
Bad dude, but he literally, so much for our world's government. NASA,
Do I have this on DaVinci? Can I rotoscope people?
Governor, physicians, and people.
Do you see this?
The nurses are freaking out.
I want to know how she did that.
We're keeping babies alive and they get put in a van and drive away. What's going on? They're like, well, we didn't keep them comfortable. It's passed into a special ward with doctors that make a few million a year.
What is this accent? It's like a Southern gentleman? Why is he a Southern gentleman all of a sudden?
Comfortable.
Why?
Until all the orders come in, the
Why?
planes land.
Why don't I understand this
and they
accent?
take the organs, then they take this blood.
Who is
and
he
they take the
imitating? Is there
skin,
somebody that's
Joe.
like got a
You
Southern
see
voice?
how it works?
Wait, I don't understand.
You know
You're freaking
why?
me out with his voice.
No,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
but
yeah.
see, it's a Southern loving voice.
But why?
You see, my dad
Why?
knew organ
Why that
harvesters
voice?
in Dallas.
The cultic milieu
Is that what
full of
organ
milieu
harvesters sound like?
because
Are they
the
Southern
word
gentry?
necessarily implies
What the fuck was that?
and chaos. And that's one of the first things that researchers into the conspiracy space realized. It's incredibly chaotic. Conspiracy theories don't typically have one standardized narrative and may not even contain
This video is
the
really
same
good. Yes,
characters.
this video is
And as I said
vibes.
before,
This
way
video
more
is
people typically
vibes,
buy
100.
into some element of a conspiracy
100.
theory than actually wholeheartedly
Right.
believe them. And besides people who believe,
Chat, I
and
love
people who buy in, there are
you.
also people who see
Right.
conspiracy theories as a means to an end.
Right.
Not to say that people who have something to materially gain from spinning conspiracy theories believe nothing. After all, it's a lot easier to convince others of something you yourself believe. But there are people who cynically exploit conspiracy theory audiences for their own ends. Enter George Galloway.
Uberfly! Meow, 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 meow. Sorry, I'm too weird. I'm too wild today.
George Galloway, talk show host, former British politician, and proud fedora
yes,
owner, was a member of British Parliament, so there's a fucking red flag, for Labour from 1987
We always
until
keep it 100. Yes!
Very early in his career, he declared himself a socialist, a revolutionary, and an anti-imperialist. And here's where we're going to start running into something that's going to stay with us throughout this journey. There is a certain type of electoral politics Marxist within the imperial core who describes themselves as an anti-imperialist. And in 1994, on a trip to the Middle East, where George Galloway met with Saddam Hussein, Galloway told the Iraqi president,
"Sir, I salute your courage, your strength, your indefatigability. I can honestly tell you that there was not a single person..."
How are the volume levels, chat? Are the volume levels balanced?
"And hoping to meet with yourself, who did not wish me to convey their heartfelt, fraternal greetings and support." Meow.
So, quick thing here.
Wait, meow?
What the fuck? Look,
meow?
George, just because a group call themselves socialists doesn't mean you have to make friends with a genocidal maniac. Saddam Hussein killed
Wait, is
200,000 people.
Did Saddam call himself a Marxist?
Blair killed, but who's counting?
Or a socialist? The Ba'ath Party, right? What was the Ba'ath Party?
Sadly, most people seem to remember George for being kind of cringe on Celebrity Big Brother one time and pretending to be a cat.
Would you like me
that's the meow.
to be the cat?
It was just disgusting. It just gave me the creeps. It was just like a shiver all down me. It was gross.
Aww.
But Galloway has a long history of walking this weird line between being kind of rad, like calling George Bush the world's biggest terrorist, and being extremely cringe, like trying to just...
I think we have figures like this, like Jesse Ventura. Occasionally, Jesse Ventura will say something very base, and then Jesse Ventura will get back on RT and talk about conspiracy theories. I'm not even sure, chat. Is Jesse Ventura a QAnoner now? Jesse Ventura might have gone fully... Wait, which way's right? That's the right. Yeah, he might have gone fully to the right at this point. I don't even know, chat. But I remember occasionally hearing him say some very base things, you know, and then the next thing that comes out of his mouth, it's just complete garbage.
By a gay man being executed by the Iranian
He's in the same lane. Okay, so we understand. Even though we are Americanoids.
Western politicians and journalists
Americoids?
using those abuses as a pretext for invasion and more imperialist wars.
Ameroids?
It doesn't make everything you hear about the regime false, and it doesn't make the regime good. This is a kind of binaristic logic, which, when combined with a kind of person...
And I don't like binaristic logic.
...is very dangerous. I heard it's popular to do foreshadowing in your videos now.
Do the foreshadowing! Do the foreshadowing,
well,
yes!
tempted to think of George Galloway in more forgiving
We got foreshadowed. We just got foreshadowed.
He has been a guest on Alex Jones's show several times, including once in 2005 when Galloway had recently...
Sorry, I'm too weird today.
Son of the White House. Okay, enough of Mr. Galloway's earlier statements and my comments. Mr. Galloway, it's a great honor to have you joining us.
It's a great pleasure, anytime at all.
Galloway keeps insisting that the attention on him when he's opposing an illegal war is the mother of all smokescreens.
And with a charge sheet like that, it's no wonder that those responsible are throwing up what I call the mother of all smokescreens.
Yeah, it's a bit clunky, but I guess I get what he's going for.
Kind of clunky.
He does say it like 6 times, though. Galloway does try to keep his hands clean
Or whole shadows.
Conspiracy theorist audiences, but now and then he slips up and really shows his cards, usually manifesting as anti-Semitism, which has led George to losing multiple jobs. Galloway, like lots of modern anti-Semites, works hard to give himself plausible deniability by always couching his attacks in criticisms of Israel, Zionists, international finance, etc., but he'll still say things like a criminal cabal runs the country, or that there are no Israel flags on the cup because Liverpool beat Tottenham at the football. Tottenham is a neighborhood in London where historically a lot of Jewish people have lived.
Oh my God,
and
no.
around the Tottenham Football Club goes back decades, even though Tottenham Hotspurs don't actually have statistically more Jewish supporters than any other club. Nonetheless, here's George showing his whole ass. Then he and his defenders can smugly pretend they're just complaining about big finance in politics or sport, and like, no, George. Leftists hate global capitalism. Leftists hate the Israeli genocide of Palestinians. Leftists hate neo-colonialism and the occupation in Palestine. You hate Jews. Also, a family member of mine died at Hillsborough, so on behalf of the fallen 96, Go fuck yourself, George. Nowadays, Galloway has a talk show produced by Russia Today called Moats, or Mother of All Talk Show. Christ on a cracker, George. He's also the leader of the Workers' Party of Great Britain, a reactionary pseudo-communist party that, much like Galloway, spends most of its time getting more irrelevant and more bigoted. The deputy leader of WPB is Jyoti Bra, who Wikipedia describes as an outspoken critic of transgenderism, but I would describe as a rancid little worm.
Oh no.
And yeah, if you hadn't guessed, George Galloway's opinions about trans people
aren't great. Not great. Oh, I knew it. I knew it was not great.
Far enough. Good pussycat, yes. Good pussycat.
I honestly felt physically ill.
Look, in case I'm waffling here or mincing my words, you know, here's a picture of George Galloway with Nigel Farage.
No, Nigel? Why do I want to say that in a British accent? It immediately comes out in a British accent.
But doesn't necessarily believe. He didn't build his platform on sharing much explicitly conspiracy content, but you only have to look at his audience to see that the people George is speaking to are picking up what he's laying down. His comments are constantly full of mentions of globalists, the Great Reset, a popular conspiracy theory among anti-vaxxers, and oh shit, I can't say the name of the horse paste on YouTube, but people also complain when I say horse paste, so let's say Mr. Chips' patented apple jelly. Galloway is a kind of socialist who thinks that appealing to bigots, reactionaries, and conspiracy cranks helps him appeal to the real working class, and he's getting exactly the audience he's been asking for. Speaking of
because trans people aren't real. Gay people aren't real, I guess.
For a long time, who recently took an anti-vaccine turn is Jimmy Dore.
Why is that study taking so long? They could get the vaccines.
Oh my God, chat.
90 days or whatever it was. I don't know how long it was.
And wrong thing paused. Wait, yeah, right thing paused. And this is unfortunate, okay? Because like I have experienced a lot of, you know, anti-vax shit even on the left, right? And it's usually not put forward in the QAnon kind of way. They're not talking about, you know, the horse sauce or anything like that. They're talking about mRNA and how you're gonna get your DNA screwed up. Or like, we just don't have enough testing on the, you know, like it's gonna be some shit like that, right? That's how you're gonna hear it. But don't be mistaken, that's, you know, that's the same thing. That is, you know, just as destructive as what Jimmy Dore is doing. And the people who are peddling that are just as useless as Jimmy Dore. Unfortunately, not all of them are as charismatic.
Time. But they can't figure out if another drug treats it for 2 fucking years?
Sean already made a great video unpacking Dore lying about Shadowfax frubes, so I'm not going to retread the exact same ground here. Jimmy Dore made a name for himself online through the Young Turks, but for as long as Dore has been doing politics in the public eye,
and there's another person that got to where they got to by virtue of somebody else, of their attachment to somebody else, of, you know, and then turned on them, and then absolutely fucking turned on them, right? And just like the weirdest way, that's like the most like transparently drama seeking without any actual critique, just, you know, taking a different lane essentially. I mean, like there were differences between Dore and the Young Turks, but I feel like a lot of the vitriol was very personal in nature, right? Including the weird shit that he said about Anna Kasparian, right? Like there's sometimes like a real weird, obsessive, creepy factor with these kind of hangers-on that can't quite let go. There's sometimes it gets really fucking creepy, chat. Sometimes it actually gets really fucking scary.
Towards conspiracism. In much the same way as Galloway, Dore has repeatedly tried to deny the horrific crimes of dictators like Bashar al-Assad, who Galloway also vehemently defends, by saying that the mainstream media is lying about war crimes and human rights abuses. It comes from this place where folks on the left get a lot of validation and recognition for pointing out where the mainstream media and the government lie about stuff, that everything promoted by the mainstream media must be implicitly untrustworthy. Here's a clip of Dore appearing on the Last American Vagabond podcast on an episode titled "The Shifting Political Landscape of the COVID-19 Deception."
You know, I think that's what all of this is showing us.
Yes, you're just repeating propaganda because you're a coward and you go along with herd mentality.
Yes.
Herd mentality?
I can't blame regular people for thinking that
do your own research.
Is some kind of
herd mentality? No.
Because everybody tells them that.
Do your own research.
It's just amazing that
don't have a herd mentality.
Wikipedia page.
Right.
But even when
don't be part of the herd.
They follow me around for the rest of my life. Like when I was right about this Syrian gas attacks being false flags, and now they still say Jimmy Dore's a conspiracy theorist because he says that the Syrian gas attacks are false flags. Well, it's been proven true that was.
Exactly.
The OPCW whistleblowers have proven that were true. But they'll never take that off of Wikipedia, and that'll never follow MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, Joy-Ann Reid, none of the people who push that completely 100% false story. And by the way, the only thing you had to do to debunk that story was call the hospital. Nobody did it. It was reported by everybody, and by the way, Rachel Maddow never took down her tweet about it.
Exactly.
So that's not. And so when censorship is selective because they'll never.
Oh, the video's too quiet. Fuck, I didn't even see that. Oh my god, thank god I cycled back through the messages.
Never a price to pay. If you tell the truth that upends a lie by the establishment,
there we go.
Censored.
I think what's really interesting in that clip is how you can see him shift from using language that acknowledges
I think I overdid
incentives
it.
and dynamics to language that calls all the people he disagrees with his enemies. Let's look at the transcript again.
You're just repeating propaganda because you're a coward and you go along with herd mentality. And I can't blame regular people for thinking that
nay, Rafen.
It's some kind of redneck drug that people are, and horse paste, because everybody tells them that. And now they still say Jimmy Dore's a conspiracy theorist because he says that the Syrian gas attacks are false flags. But it's been proven. It's been proven true that they were false flags. The OPCW whistleblowers...
Like sweet Assad money.
True, but they'll never take that off Wikipedia, and they'll never follow MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, Rolling Stone, Joy-Ann Reid, none of the people who pushed that completely 100% false story. And so, you know, censorship is selective because they'll never censor the establishment. They're never gonna... Again, if you lie at the behest of the establishment, never a price to pay. If you tell the truth that upends a lie by the establishment, you will be censored.
His language becomes not only more hostile, but also more conspiratorial. He's attributing malice where incompetence and a systemic perspective would explain much, much more. The way that Jimmy Dore argues against vaccines is, typically for a conspiracy theorist, by sharing studies that show how alternative treatments could be good, maybe, but the mainstream media will never show you these studies. It's all selective reading.
And the whole thing about could be good maybe, right? The reason they have to say it that way is because, like, there's a lot of preliminary research that gets done before, you know, a lot of money is put into, like, a lot of times. So, you know, they could do things like case studies, right? Which, you know, you can examine a case, or you can examine several cases, right? And you know, that is a form of research that does tell us something, but the conclusions that you can draw from something like that are just not really much of anything. But, you know, the idea is that they think that, like, well, they saw this one case study that looked good, so that, you know, there must be something to this. Not necessarily so, right? And yeah, the attribution of malice where incompetence would explain the situation better is kind of a red flag. It's kind of like a key signifier, let's just say.
If it could be spun to agree with his narrative, it's a good and useful fact. If it disagrees outright, it's more mainstream media disinformation. From one angle, it's tempting to go easier on Jimmy Dore. He's an older guy, he was already more vulnerable, and from what he describes, it sounds like he got COVID after getting vaccinated, which does happen, but it's understandable why that would be a scary experience. I've had COVID.
It sucks. However, what I obviously can't sympathize with or make any apologies for is spreading dangerous medical advice to vulnerable people who are looking for any excuse not to get vaccinated. The problem with Centaur shampoo isn't that it doesn't work in any case for any course of treatment. The issue is that people who look to popular figures for guidance and advice will take as much of the stuff as possible,
How are you doing?
way beyond the amount that would be prescribed under any conditions, and just poison themselves. I actually know someone who caught COVID, and because they still live with their parents who are MAGA conspiracy theorists, they were forcibly given this fucking dewormer while already sick with coronavirus. I guess what's really interesting here is how Jimmy Dore approaches journalism and the search for truth. He says he's not a journalist, and
you come in here and the first thing you hear is Jimmy Dore.
I've never actually seen him tell a joke. He just makes that face he makes.
You missed the really good conspiracy theory, Umar.
And I think it's important to
you missed the really
even though he's
the really
trying
dank
his best to
memes.
wade deep into issues of credible sources, cover-ups, manufacturing consent, and
The really dank memes were earlier on. Row.
Pony porridge is that Rachel Maddow
Pony
lies about
porridge.
things. In particular,
Oh my
a
god,
Syrian
pony
gas
porridge!
attack he
I need
says
to do
was
a theme
false
song for
flag.
that.
And he actually does
I
this
really
all the time.
do. I really do
For
want to do a
instance,
theme song for
discussing the coverage
that.
of the gas attacks with Aaron Mate of Grey Zone Media, he said,
How can you ever trust that news agency ever again? I can't. And what is the implications of that? What does that say?
Clearly for Jimmy Dore, once a news outlet has been caught lying, it can never be trustworthy again, which certainly has a lot of populist appeal as an idea. As someone who would like the media to tell the perfect truth 100% of the time, I find it very noble. But what Jimmy is calling a proven lie is actually a lot messier
Food conspiracy?
than he would like to make it seem. And we're gonna
Like
have to
fighting
get into
foodons?
that.
Wait.
However, we're running into...
Here's my favorite food conspiracy. Fighting foodons? They made that show because they don't want you to know that fighting foodons are actually real, and that the government is experimenting with different types of meal tickets in order to take the food that you've prepared and turn it into a foodon in order to battle other foodons. And to fight the gluttons, ultimately, chat. To fight the gluttons, okay? That mistreat their foodons. Fighting foodons. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, chat. People, they had that show just to trick you into thinking that that the fighting foodons aren't indeed real, which they are. And our government is holding them captive as we speak. And I think it's just, I think people should know. I think people need to know the real truth of the existence of fighting foodons.
The problem we were always gonna have talking about conspiracy theories on the left. Namely, well, you tend to validate things based on the history that you
tinfoil
have.
hat.
And I know some people by now
Free
are
tinfoil
home going,
hat.
audio, none of this.
If you press the like button, you just gotta push with your finger the like button. My favorite conspiracy is the elites foment conspiracy theories to get people worried about aliens when Jeff Bezos exists. I know, right? That's the really far out one.
This is really surprising. And some people are at home going, well,
they're here to battle the crab
ops.
ops.
Program testing their transgendification gas, and then they fake the reports to make it look like chlorine. Okay, no, but seriously, there are people at home thinking, Sophie, false flag attacks are a real thing that happens. And you remember the weapons of mass destruction hype from the 2000s. Manufacturing consent is done all the time, and you can't take either side at face value during a war. And yes, a comprehensive understanding of history and American imperialism, and especially the intelligence community and geopolitics today, does require knowing some things that seem like crank
Chat, am I your goblin queen?
Nonsense to other people. Before we get any further,
Or am I your goblin princess?
we're gonna have to confront the question. What about when conspiracy theories are true?
Because you're corrupted and co-op. I'm reporting on this thing. I'm not saying it. I'm just reporting that. I'm not giving anybody.
Literally have an alien base, and they are literally communicating, and they've got like astronaut level people taking super hardcore levels of drugs and going into meetings with these things and making intergalactic deals.
Following a robbery of FBI offices, documents showed that the government
Pleasure
was involved
doing
in
business
illegal
with you,
surveillance
Mr.
operations,
Alien.
monitoring, infiltrating, and even manipulating
Goblin
radical political
Princess,
groups
number
with a
one.
intelligence program
Yachty.
known as COINTELPRO. This sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's true.
The actual
I'm breaking
real
no new
one.
ground here. This is all on Wikipedia. The same documents revealed the assassination of Black Panther Fred Hampton had been a coordinated effort by the FBI and Illinois police. The history of neoliberalism itself sounds like a conspiracy theory. Milton Friedman and the Chicago School,
That's true,
a bunch
actually.
of capitalist libertarian fanatics who wound up advising government agencies all over the world, using the CIA to enact coups to implement free market capitalism. If you know about this history, actually a lot of the stuff Alex Jones and others say about the intelligence community suddenly become apparent references to real things that you know took place. That's one way that traveling in the milieu of stigmatized knowledge can lead you to conspiracism. How about something which I'd call a conspiracy theory, which is not verified by any official sources, which I also believe to be true?
And the FBI killed Martin Luther King.
Is a conspiracy theory, in that it is not verified by official sources, it serves a purpose in the conversation, and in that context, it reflects an intergroup social conflict. The American government is racist as hell. However, King's family have been saying that James Earl Ray was framed and that the FBI killed King.
Damn, Sophie's got the reflexes. Chat.
The day he died.
Did you see that?
There is plenty of evidence to back that up, though most of it.
Did you see that?
Again, I believe this, but
I didn't expect that. That was like the end. That was like end of a TikTok scary.
Because I think I have a responsibility to communicate when things have not been proven. When you start to read through the literature around conspiracy theories, it becomes clear there is a division among scholars. The division largely comes down to this question: what about when conspiracy theories are true? It isn't about how to react to true conspiracy theories, or anything so prescriptive. After all, these are academics. But rather, how to define the truth. It's kind of a big question. It's been perplexing philosophers, morally ambiguous politicians, and people coming down from heroic trips for literally thousands of years. What, even is reality? Man? In classic rhetorical style, I will outline the side I disagree with first, tell you why they suck, and then tell you the side I prefer. But I encourage everyone to go and read about it because it's a complex subject and really interesting. The first approach you often encounter is to look at conspiracy theories as a deviation away from something called reality. What is reality, and how do we tell what happens in reality? Well, official sources tell us. What they say on the news is true. And
Okay, I like this music.
Which they do sometimes, because they're only human. Eventually, they'll let us know, and we can update our understanding of
Yes.
reality to accommodate. In the book Creating
I need the
Conspiracy
Crab Ops
Theories,
music,
authors
chat.
cite
I need it.
Harris's definition of a conspiracy theory, saying that the following
And you need it
criteria
too.
make something a conspiracy theory.
1. It posits an explanation for a target event or set of target events that is alternative to the official account of the events. 2. Claims that the events was or were brought about by one or more conspirators. 3.
Conspirator.
The events are involved
That sounds like a thing. I don't know.
4.
Conspirator.
Explanatory power than the official account.
The authors go on to say,
we define conspiracy belief as the subjective conviction that a small group of powerful actors is secretly working together to produce an unlawful and
I mean, Vietnam was a conspiracy theory. Chelsea Manning proved many conspiracies.
Imagine if a small group of powerful people were making society
Have we got
worse
the
on
have we got the right
purpose.
balance here?
Review. There are official accounts of events, and when people differ from those official accounts, claiming that an alternate set of events took place, and that the architects or beneficiaries of those events are covering it up, that is a conspiracy theory. When that belief is internalized as an outlook on life, that is conspiracy belief. Here's my issue. According to Keith Harris's criteria, we can point to all sorts of things as conspiracy theories that are categorically not, and not just because they're true or happened in reality. Various historical genocides meet all of the criteria, or met all of the criteria at the time they were happening. The genocide of Palestinians by Israeli forces
meet the criteria today. Marx's critique of capitalism isn't just
Chat disappeared.
Phony radicals like me, but serves as
How
the
did that
basis of much
happen?
of modern economics. And yet, thanks to registered passenger on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane and Margaret Thatcher's greatest achievement, Tony Blair, being a Marxist is a political death sentence in the UK today. It would be fair to say Marxism meets all the criteria. Operation Legacy, a program by the British government to destroy evidence of crimes committed by the British Empire, has been admitted to by the British government. However, the crimes being covered up will never be admitted to, because they destroyed all the evidence. So Operation Legacy doesn't meet the criteria for a conspiracy theory, but the crimes do. Do you see my point? They are treating authority as truth, and I think that is neither logical, safe, nor productive. For instance, the Iran-Contra affair is described like this.
What is known as the Iran-Contra affair was initially an unproven conspiracy theory. Over time, however, the evidence showed that the US government had secretly sold weapons to the Khomeini government in Iran with the goal of funding the right-wing Contra Nicaraguan guerrillas in violation of the Boland Amendment. Thus, unproven conspiracy theories are sometimes subsequently convincingly supported.
And to me, that just seems buck wild. The approach that I prefer, as discussed at length in Michael Bakunin's Culture of Conspiracy, is to make a distinction between what we call authorized knowledge and stigmatized knowledge. What is true or untrue, that's down to the facts. But the mainstream authorities, the government, the media, academia, etc., authorize certain knowledge to be accepted as true and stigmatize other knowledge to be disregarded. I think this paints a much more accurate picture of the state of knowledge in our society. As Michael Bakunin describes it,
stigmatized knowledge, the broader category in which conspiracy theories nest, is that set of knowledge claims rejected or ignored by certifying institutions. In other words, by authorities of some sort. To advance stigmatized knowledge claims is to challenge authority.
Which I think is pretty interesting given the world that we live in now. This of course didn't escape Bakunin's attention either. He goes on to say,
the movement of stigmatized knowledge into the mainstream therefore tells us something about the relative strength of authority. For the stronger authoritative institutions are, the greater their capacity to separate.
I mean, chat, speaking of like conspiracies or things that sounded like conspiracies were taken by some as conspiracy theories that turned out to be true, the intellectual capture of Twitch politics by the right was a conspiracy theory, was regarded as a conspiracy theory at the time that I, started talking about the Clout Network, right? That being the Twitch Politics Clout Network, not to imply that there aren't other Clout Networks operating on Twitch, but they are somewhat intertwined. So, at times it is appropriate to see them as one when their interests are aligned, and at other times, they definitely do function separately, right? So I feel like I was one of the first people to notice that, right? And it was really obvious. The only thing about it was that you needed to be in with these people, and noticing something like that was going to keep you on the outside or put you on the outside, right? Inside the club, you're not allowed to criticize the club. And so it's I've heard some conspiracies on, Twitch politics. The most famous one, I think, was when Merrick came out with a tweet implying that Dylan and I had a deal going, that we had worked out, planned for the blow up that happened on WrestleBrania. I assure you that was a real blow up. That was really, Dylan crashing and burning on my on my stream, right? That was not pre-planned. We did not negotiate that. We did not talk about that. And Dylan was indeed very, very upset, leaving. But, I mean, although you do get conspiracy theories like that, there are also there's some really sus shit going on behind the scenes. And I've let you know a little bit of that. I've talked about Zonia. I've talked about, Twitch politics, and I've talked about, kind of the way that these things work. I also feel like when I look at the new alt trans Lauren Southern Army, like, I see the people that have been harassing me for the past year, right? I hated those people before it was cool. And to be fair, chat, those people did hate me first, right? But yeah, they hated me for a reason. Because I represent everything that they stand against. And if you stand against this bullshit, this co-optation of trans identity by scumbags, literal fucking white supremacists like Lauren Southern, then it's time to stand with NCC. Because as far as I can see, I am the only one who's taken that kind of stand against these people.
Stigmatized knowledge to the
I mean, it's really easy to hate on these people right now when they're making up lies about Keffels, right? But, you know, I called it, and other people were like, oh no, maybe No Comment Chick's the one that's drama. Yeah, no, I'm sure Gammy's fine, right? I'm sure Gammy is like, you know, the victim here.
Of conspiracy theories and other forms of stigmatized knowledge, such as ideas about the year 2012, constitute a barometer that suggests a weakening of authority. The resilience of such recent features as the birther theories that strike at the heart of the presidency and the 9/11 theories that implicate the national government in an attack on American soil are further indicators of this weakening.
So what?
And let me go a little further on this ledge, okay? To my fellow BreadTube and Left Twitch creators, I would appreciate from you a little more respect and a little less shade, okay? Because it's no longer cool to hate on NCC. If you hate on NCC, you're standing with Lauren Southern now, right? I mean, that is, you know, those are my fucking mortal enemies over there, right? These are people that have absolutely tried to wreck my career. These are people who have been obsessed with me for the past year. And if you're really against this fucking bullshit, this co-optation by the alt-right, the literal fucking alt-right in Lauren Southern of trans identity, then I would appreciate your support, because it has not been there in the past. I gotta say, all I've seen is a lot of cowardice and very little solidarity.
It really is a conspiracy theory. I've left it deliberately vague until now, and the only definition I offered I then argued against, and the reason for that is that I'm kind of ambivalent on the exact question we're discussing. If a conspiracy theory is true, is it no longer a conspiracy theory? I don't think so. I think conspiracy theories are sometimes true, but I think the more important distinction to make is that a conspiracy theory is a form of stigmatized knowledge. People often think that conspiracy theories can be debunked by picking away at particular facts or claims, like pulling out the bottom of a house of cards, bringing the whole thing down, but to a conspiracy theorist, it's a lot more like an impressionist painting, and debunking does little more than smudging a brushstroke, leaving the overall impression unchanged. Conspiracy theories have this bizarre relationship to the truth because conspiracy theories are...
Yeah, if you do ever run into NCC haters, you're going to notice this too, right? You're going to notice this characteristic that they are not, you know, you would think that, like, okay, if I can find, you know, what is your basis for this logic, right? What is your belief? Okay, that's what you believe? Let me show you the picture of Irene dancing. So, no, she wasn't making accounts. She was dancing, right? And they're still like, but still though, what about her mods, right? They are just moving the goalpost, right? And insulting my mod team in the process. Listen, the part of my mod team that was problematic is gone now, okay? And the people that are still here are people that I won't stand to have attacked by actual bad faith actors.
Lacked into group social conflicts. And so, even if you could say that conspiracy theory, broadly speaking, is true, it might mean radically different things to different people. Take, for example, the popular modern conspiracy theory and internet meme, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. To some, this statement implies the involvement of Hillary Clinton and other liberal politicians. To others, Donald Trump and conservatives. But crucially, the truth has very little bearing on the narrative. The veracity of the statement that Epstein was murdered by a conspiracy doesn't change the statement really being made, that members of the ruling class had provable ties to Epstein, which might implicate them in his death, or might not. But very few people choose to implicate the ruling class broadly when discussing this narrative, choosing instead to implicate their perceived enemies and vindicate their perceived allies. In actuality, the social conflict here is between the public, who deserve public servants who are accountable and won't have ties to child sex traffickers, or at the very least, a justice system that will take power away from those people if they do, and the ruling class, who want to remain unaccountable. So let's talk about Jimmy Dore and Syrian gas attacks. In 2018, in the city of Douma in southern Syria, a gas attack killed between 40 and 50 people and wounded hundreds of others. A week later, after outraged news coverage and expedited political consensus from Western politicians that the attacks must have been committed by Assad's government against their own people, the US, UK, and France carried out a series of military strikes against government sites in Syria. In the months and years that followed, a fact-finding mission and report by the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons found that the gas used was, and I'm not saying this as a scientist or weapons expert, basically chlorine gas. Syria and Russia responded to the events by claiming the US and UK had staged the attack and faked videos and reports in order to justify a military strike, dismissing the OPCW report published by Bellingcat, which the Russian government has claimed is funded by the American government to smear Russia. Bellingcat has documented extensive use of chemical weapons in the Syrian civil war, a UN investigation into which Russia vetoed earlier in 2018. The gas attack conspiracy theory, here referred to in the singular, but like all conspiracy theories, extremely plural in its diversity of narratives, facts, and characters, it quickly exploded among self-proclaimed anti-imperialists such as Jimmy Dore, George Galloway, and the staff at the Grey Zone. So when Jimmy Dore says in that clip that OPCW whistleblowers have proven that the attacks were a false flag, what he means is that WikiLeaks shared reports from within the OPCW casting doubt on whether the gas canisters had been dropped by helicopter, implicating Assad's government, or placed manually, implicating the Syrian rebels, White Helmets, or whichever intelligence agencies you'd prefer to believe were involved. I say it like that because between them, Dore and the Grey Zone have tried to cast doubt on whether the attacks took place at all, whether chlorine gas was used, who was responsible, and why. All these pieces are fungible because the truth of what happened doesn't matter. What matters is that Rachel Maddow is a liar who can't be trusted. The problem is that just like with COVID, Jimmy Dore's coverage isn't motivated simply by uncovering the truth, but a conspiratorial motivated logic instead.
Conspiratorial mindset
too. When Dore talks
too.
about the gas attacks, the consistent elements of his conjecture are that the US government was using the attacks as a justification to bomb Syria, and that the mainstream media, usually Rachel Maddow specifically, are untrustworthy liars, unlike Jimmy Dore, who you can trust. When CNN
Definitely trust Jimmy Dore.
Theorist, Dore retorted that
Definitely trustworthy.
Is not there to inform you.
I'm gonna get some water, chat. I'll be right back.
Again, the people Dore is discussing here have a documented history of helping to manufacture consent for American imperialism, and in the case of these gas attacks, that's literally what they're doing as well. But what they're saying doesn't have to be false for them to be using it toward imperialist ends. To extend the comparison to COVID, lots of COVID conspiracy theories point to, for example, heightened police powers as proof that the pandemic was manufactured to allow governments to implement authoritarian policies. The observation is true, the policies are real, it doesn't require the crisis to be manufactured for it to be true. Governments the world over, but especially under the neoliberal project, love to exploit crises occurring organically or instigated by them to tighten control on the population. But this is where conspiracy theorists use motivated reasoning. It's demonstrably true that the government is using the situation in the way they are pointing out is bad, but that isn't as good a story as if the whole crisis was manufactured. The story isn't proportional to your fear and outrage and betrayal at the government cynically exploiting a crisis. It isn't proportional to your feelings of stress and helplessness. So what's the answer? Well, believe what you will, but act safely and proportionately. If the government is surveilling radical groups, organize with people you're most sure you can trust using appropriate OPSEC practices. If the government is implementing authoritarian policies using the pandemic as an excuse, you don't have to become an anti-vaxxer to oppose their policies. If the media is manufacturing consent for war, it will only damage your credibility to try and build the case that everything they say is false beyond all available evidence, when you could just question whether more bombs will help Syria anyway.
You know what they say, where there's smoke, sometimes someone is just burning their food, or smoking, or really bad at ironing.
We need to talk about the economics of conspiracism a little bit. The first thing to understand is that grifters and scams are an absolutely essential part of a successful conspiracy theory. You have to have full-time, professional, paid evangelists if you're going to grow your scam into an MLM, or your MLM into a cult, or your cult into a religion, or at least neo-reactionary fascist sect of modern Christianity. At the risk of repeating myself, it's not to say that people who make money peddling conspiracy theories are only in it for the money. For example, for Jimmy Dore, it seems to be much more about the power trip of being taken as the only legitimate source of anti-imperialist news coverage, looking at the alternative sources that the mainstream media will never tell you about. Marjorie Taylor Greene is literally selling equestrian edibles to her audience. Alex Jones tells his fans that his pills, which are literally full of lead, will keep them safe from globalist mind control. It actually maps directly onto the relationship that their audience have to their content. Mainstream media, authorized knowledge, is poisonous, and it will kill you, or make you a slave, or put you back to sleep. So buy my patented Jimmy pills. 100% guaranteed truth. Side effects may include selective reading, aversion to science, and pulling the face.
This is why outlets like The Grey Zone exist. The Grey Zone, founded in 2015 by Max Blumenthal and Ben Norton, set out their original mission as fighting for a multipolar world, or rather, a world not just ruled by America. However, they were identified as conspiracy theorists when they started
Irene here from the NCC,
trying to expose any critics of Russia as Western state-funded
Hello?
stooges. In February 2020, Blumenthal wrote,
Hello?
Reuters, BBC, and Bellingcat participated in covert UK Foreign Office-funded programs
Oh,
Weaken
it's a banana.
Russia, leaked docs reveal. An article which is a small piece of internet history because it was the first to ever receive the Twitter warning, these materials may have been obtained through hacking. This is actually interesting from our perspective because that is a cut and dry example of the process of stigmatizing knowledge. Hacked and leaked documents by definition can't be verified unless the people they were stolen from admit they are legitimate. The documents Grey Zone published certainly implicate Reuters and the BBC as working with the UK government to promote British propaganda around the world, but their relationship to Bellingcat is tenuous at best. Bellingcat did workshops on journalistic standards and verifying information sources with the Zinc Network, a commercial research and marketing business who also bid to be involved with the UK government's propaganda project. This is how the Grey Zone operates a lot. This party has ties to this party who worked with these guys, therefore, etc.
Multipolar world,
In the article,
yes.
they claim Bellingcat is funded directly by the UK government. Once you start seeing what they're doing as conspiracy logic, it's obvious how it shapes everything that the Grey Zone does, and it leads to headlines like the one I just read, which, I don't know, is that libel? I don't know enough about the law here, but I think writing your headline that Bellingcat participated in covert UK Foreign Office funded programs to weaken Russia, and then putting no evidence that that was the case in your actual article is, at the very least, low-quality journalism.
So, that
For their
sounds like
constant
a...
denial of war crimes, not to mention their recent anti-vaccine turn, Grey Zone is a deprecated source on a...
Like, that kind of dearth of actual factual claims or even, you know, like, let alone receipts, like, that sounds like a Kalia Withart twit longer.
English Wikipedia. Deprecated sources aren't exactly banned, but Wikipedia won't let people use them as a source if there is any alternative available at all. Grey Zone is in great journalistic company as a deprecated source alongside The Sun, The Daily Mail, Jihad
No, but Samantha Bananas, only Samantha sandwiches?
Watch, Breitbart, bestgore.com, and of course Russia Today. And I have to say, I find it pretty funny that Max Blumenthal is determined to prove that everyone else is funded by national governments and has connections to the political elite, Because Max's dad, Sidney Blumenthal, was a presidential aide
Oh
to
yeah,
Bill
that's
Clinton.
right.
When Hillary Clinton's
I
emails
remember
were leaked
this.
in 2016, a bunch of them from her time as Secretary of State were Sidney Blumenthal emailing her Max's articles and her responding with things like,
"Please congratulate Max for another impressive piece. He's so good. Another smart piece. As usual, Max strikes again. Good stuff. Where is he now?"
Am I saying all this to show a sinister connection between Max Blumenthal and the Clintons? No, I'm saying he's a spoiled trust fund kid, born into the American political elite and desperate to prove that everyone else is as well connected as he is. Max strikes again! When Greyzone was launched, it was trading on Max's journalistic credibility, which he used to have because he did lots of good reporting about Israel and, yes, about Syria, but then he started getting more entrenched and binaristic in the way he talked about these complicated situations, disregarding any criticisms as mainstream misinformation.
Where is he now?
In 2016, he started spreading claims of false flag attacks by Syrian rebels, manufactured to justify a supposed American invasion which didn't happen. I think it's really important to keep remembering the people who lived through the weapons of mass destruction craze and witnessed the American media manufacturing consent for war in Iraq aren't pulling these claims out of nowhere. They're at least partially primed by real things that did happen in recent memory. The capitalist media is a hideous leviathan, and the ways that it manufactures consent for inhumanity and violence, both immediate and systemic, are horrible. Journalistic organizations driven by profit are at least in part controlled by media oligarchs like Rupert Murdoch, and stick to a line not dictated by speaking truth to power, but rather by the interests of powerful parties deeply invested in not changing the status quo. However, overemphasizing the control that these parties have over the media misses the larger problem, that an organically evolving system of incentives is open to abuse by the rich, and the only people who could intervene to keep the media truly free benefit from the way that it is biased. And that is a bigger and more serious problem than the media being controlled by a small, sinister cabal, because it cannot be solved by defeating a guy in a room somewhere. Public personalities like Dore or Galloway and outfits like Greyzone, however, don't exist in a vacuum where they're able to pursue pure, noble, journalistic truth. Independence in the entertainment and journalism industry means either being beholden to wealthy sponsors or the whims of your audience. And the most surefire way to capture an audience in the kind of media market we have is to convince them that every other source of informational nourishment is poison. Proving that other outlets are untrustworthy is the name of the game, and that's why they spin their wheels so much, trying to show that everyone else is either state-funded or backed by some wealthy benefactor, which probably makes this a great time to say that this video is sponsored by Boxu. Boxu is a premium snack subscription service which sends you monthly packages of snacks from Japan, and this season's box is my favorite color, pink, to celebrate the cherry blossoms. As well as snacks, Boxu he brings, everything he says is a kind of self-selecting filter, right? Where every new sentence you're tested, asked, are you really this gullible? Do you really believe what this round, red, wet man is telling you right now? And if you decide that you are, and you do, it just becomes this sublime noise. He's always screaming all the time, begging you to just wake up. Wake up to the complete paradigm of absolute control. Wake up and understand the satanic scum selling baby body parts to the Democrat organ harvesting labs. You know, it's wake up all the time. It's surreal. It's like being in a dream sequence in a horror movie. His delivery fills you with this energy. If you imagine that the people he's talking about are all the people you dislike, it actually becomes kind of cathartic. It feels good in a very juvenile way to hear that the bad people are irredeemably evil scum who have to be destroyed for the sake of humanity. It makes me think of, just bear with me for a second here, Batman. People like to talk about Batman being a fascist, and there are clear-cut examples of fascist dudes writing Batman stories as fascist propaganda to be enjoyed by fascists, but that's not really what people usually mean by the broader take, Batman is a fascist, is it? When people say that, they tend to be talking about how Batman's response to crime in Gotham is to put on a bat costume and punch poor people in the face, when he's a literal trust fund billionaire who could instead write a check for unimaginable wealth for every person he's putting in the hospital or sending to jail. He could help people in a meaningful way, but instead he approaches social ills with the attitude of a military assault. Because he's a fascist, right? But that ignores a pretty important aspect of Batman's stories, namely that Batman's world contains such
Sorry
people
about that,
as
chat.
the Jokester,
Yeah.
Doubleman, Dr. Cold, and the Puzzler, and all of them are dangerous,
The
highly
Puzzler?
capable, and sometimes even superpowered serial killers who
Did
will
it
only kill
unpause?
more people in nefarious, overcomplicated, and silly ways. So Batman has to stop them any time that they aren't already in prison, and sometimes even when they are. So I guess what people mean when they say Batman is a fascist is, if he existed in the real world and also acted the way he does in the comics but without supervillains to fight, then he would be a fascist. We don't live in Batman's world. But if you take everything Alex Jones says at face value, you might think that we do. Hillary Clinton is poisoning the water supply to turn the frogs gay. Obama kidnapped the mayor and he's gonna turn him Muslim unless he gets $1 million. Space aliens are infiltrating the government and control... Sorry, shit, I just realized that's a thing Alex Jones actually said, which is literally a comic book plot. That's the Skrulls. Shit. I think that when we talk about conspiracy theory grifters and what they're trying to do, it's really helpful to think about what kind of world they're projecting. What does someone who believes what this person says think the world is like? How does that person act? It's worth thinking about. Let's talk about Russia Today for a second. I make fun of RT for the worst content that they put out, and I won't stop doing that, nor do I think it's a bad thing to do, but I want to be totally clear that I think the shutting down of RT America is wrong. We'll talk about the war. Trust me, the whole conspiracy left fucking exploded when Russia invaded Ukraine.
Whoa, it's paused again, isn't
I don't
it?
want anyone to misunderstand me here. I think this kind of censorship is wrong. It's really important to get your news from a variety of sources, especially from different places around the world. Al Jazeera, for instance, which was also censored in America during the Iraq War, does great reporting on stuff around the world in ways that you wouldn't get from American,
got
British,
unpaused.
or
Okay,
European
good.
news sources. However, Al Jazeera is also owned by the Qatari royal family, so their reporting on Qatari interests might
Are we
not be
making
as
the
good.
frogs gay in
Every
chat
news outlet
today?
has its bias, and you can still get something from it if you know what that bias is. The reason RT is worth our concern isn't that RT is Russian, it's because of RT journalist Caleb Maupin. Caleb Maupin is one of the most prominent conspiracy leftists active in the
Oh,
Anglosphere
yes.
today, and out of the
Oh,
people we're
yes.
discussing,
Wait, is Peter Coffin in
he's
this
most
one too?
advanced in terms of his level of conspiracist nonsense. Maupin is also very
Does
well
Sophie talk
connected with the
about,
world of
Peter
shitheads who
Coffin at
call
all?
themselves communists, making a whole YouTube series with pseudo-communist transphobe Jyoti Bra.
Oh, no.
and appearing at
Oh,
a
yeah, I forgot
conference
about
in
that.
2018 with Alexander Dugin,
Frogs are
one of
getting
the
gayed.
founders of Russia's National Bolshevik Party.
Which, according to Haas, is totally not Nazgul's.
Somewhat pivotal for me.
Totally not a Nazgul, right,
Next
Haas?
to Alexander Dugin. You know, the first time I heard the name Dugin, it was thrown at me as an epithet. And it was in 2014.
Dugan.
People began to denounce
Dugan. Burger King. Yes, it is time indeed, chat.
called a Strasserist. And one of the favorite epithets
Strasser right.
people began throwing
Get
at
it
me
right.
was I was called a Duganist. All throughout the United States, they are tearing down.
Right, it's a
Confederate
Strasser right.
monuments, right? And the Confederacy was an awful thing. I mean, not
We
just
stand
for
Thought
African
Slime.
Americans, but for white people. I do not defend the
Thought
Confederacy.
Slime.
But they're not replacing those statues with anything. Because the notion on the political left is not just that it's wrong to have Confederate statues.
Source, dude,
The notion
trust
is that
me.
It's wrong to have statues of anything. One shouldn't be worshiping anything.
Oh,
The
is he
idea
talking
that
about the great
heroes
man
who
of
aspire to
history?
become, this is wrong. That's the message.
Great men of
that's coming
history
out
theory?
of the modern left that is very carefully funded. And
It's
controlled.
rooted in something, right? But it's just kind of a distortion, too.
Freedom, but there's a much more recent examples of
Oiga.
activities. I mean, at this
Oiga
point,
King.
The Institute for Policy Studies, the Rockefeller Foundation,
Demon
the
Mama.
Foundation, most people
You
in the United
stupid
States
idiot.
espouse
We're going
what
to
appears be a
Burger
leftist
King.
ideology,
Get in the car,
subsidized
Demon
by the
Mama.
government, whether directly or indirectly.
It's very clear that Maupin, just
Sorry,
like
I don't know
Jyoti
what
Bra
that
and
was. That
Galloway,
was some kind
is
of weird
working
melodrama
hard
where
to make communism
Destiny,
cool and
where
exciting
East
to
Coast Destiny
reactionaries
pulls
and
up
bigots.
to
But something that's
take
very
Demon
funny
Mama to
about this, which
Burger
comes across
King
in
for
his
some
writing,
reason.
and I really am
Burger King?
sad about how much of his writing I had to read for this project.
Strasser
is that
right,
he
not
doesn't
Strasser
think
left.
Much of his audience's intelligence. Everything he writes is incredibly patronizing. Like,
Hannah Arendt,
this is so true.
favorite of the partisan review Milieu, composed a book entitled Eichmann in Jerusalem, which was widely praised.
They got a Caleb
In the
impersonator.
book, she put forward the widely celebrated concept
I wonder
of
if the dude's
banality
available for
of
birthday
evil,
parties.
arguing that genocidal Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann was just an ordinary person, essentially.
Just an
making the
ordinary
case
dude.
that all populism and mass mobilizations are fascistic in essence, because deep down, ordinary working class people are Nazis.
Which is just a nightmare statement, because not only is it misrepresenting what Hannah Arendt said, not only is it glossing over tons of history in simplistic terms, but also at the same time as he misrepresents Arendt, Maupin is showing that he understands what she means, right? The banality of evil is so horrifying to Arendt exactly because ordinary people did carry out not only the Holocaust, but every little bit of the Nazi regime, and every inhuman and vile thing that human beings have ever done to one another. The complete revelation of the face of evil, the ability to gaze into the eyes of the architect of genocide and see a real human person with internal thoughts and dreams, is exactly what's so scary about the Holocaust, because ordinary people did turn in their neighbors, their colleagues, their fellow
Did he
human
put
beings
on a
to
suit
the
to
Nazi
read?
extermination machine. And
Not sure.
Hitler is incensed by this observation, because he believes in the sanctity and purity and supremacy of something that he calls ordinary working class people. This is exactly why Caleb Maupin is so slippery. He says things like, "I'll never disavow other anti-imperialists,"
You think Demon Mama would drive off without getting Destiny anything at Burger King?
and "I'll never disavow other anti-imperialists" is exactly how a fascist, using the aesthetics of leftism, signals to other people who aren't welcome among the left because they're bigoted or insensitive or support
There it is again.
genocidal regimes, that they have a safe place with him. I would say that, though coded, what Maupin says there about Arendt amounts to soft Holocaust denial, which shouldn't be too surprising given the company that he keeps, and the fact that Maupin is an anti-Semite, trying hard but not doing well at hiding it. In 2015, Maupin wrote an anti-Semitic screed called "Satan at the Fountainhead, the Israel Lobby and the Financial Crisis," which is a title that sounds bad for
That's a
book
weird
which is
champ.
somehow worse. Though
That's a weird champ and a half.
The book from readers
Don't
by
you
being out
think?
of stock. He says he can't delist it for some reason. Someone has uploaded all of the book sans a couple dozen pages online. And if those couple dozen pages are Maupin saying, "The rest of this book is a satire of what an extremely anti-Semitic person would say," then I sincerely apologize. The book is written in Maupin's usually dry and condescending style, as he lays out the connections between America and Israel, both historically and in the modern day. But rather than seeing Israel as a settler colonialist project, receiving support from the American ruling class, most of them not Jewish, but either fundamentalist Christians who view Israel as a part of an accelerationist mission to initiate the rapture, or supremacists invested in Israel as an outpost of American and European power in the Middle East, he paints a picture of an America that would be good if it weren't subverted by the nefarious forces of the Israel Lobby. As the title implies, he is describing the tail wagging the dog. He links back the 2008 financial crash, private prisons, the lowering of class consciousness, and just about every problem in society to Zionists and international bankers.
Christianity, Islam, and almost every other religion has condemned the practice of usury. The reason is simple. Lending money for interest is predatory.
Why? What could he?
Yikes.
What
Yikes.
could he mean? Almost every other.
Oh no. Oh
Ayn
no.
Rand,
He
who
went
Maupin
there.
refers to by her birth name Alyssa Rosenbaum, comes up a lot in the book because she's Maupin's prime example of an evil person. I'm not here to defend.
Okay, Maupin is such a weird champ. He's not just going to be anti-Semitic. He's going to be anti-Semitic about Ayn Rand.
Ayn Rand. I really resent being made to defend Ayn Rand. She was a shitty person. But I don't think I have the same reason for disliking her as Maupin, who asks at one point in the book whether Rand has any right to say what is a core American value, since she is, after all, a Russian-born Jewish atheist. He also says that there is no Marxism in Israel, which is absurd. It's a whole fucking country. The book ends with the inspiring lines,
"People in the United States who are awakening in these increasingly turbulent times must begin to envision a new country for themselves and their children. When they do this, they are not alone. Almost all of humanity is now rising with the same aspirations and fighting the same common enemy."
And if the rest of the book is anything to go on, it's pretty clear who Caleb thinks our common enemy is. I'm front-loading talking about Maupin's anti-Semitism here because I think it's the first thing people should know about him, but also because it's part of what sets him apart. He has specific conspiracy theories he likes to spread. Don't worry, we're getting there. But his conspiracism is more advanced. It's conspiracy belief, not just conspiracy theories. He makes this distinction between imperialists and anti-imperialists like Galloway does, but he also likes to say that globalists is the word right-wingers use to mean imperialists. But then in later books, he just says globalists himself. So
Nazgûls are wild. Yes.
Exactly what you think it means.
I mean, sorry, yes. Why can I get out of Moe mode? Chat, I'm in Moe.
It doesn't matter if my hero is a part of the ruling class.
Oh my god, chat, what happened? Why am I talking Moe to you? All of a sudden, everything's just become very Moe. And I can't unmoe. Is this okay, chat? If we Moe? Can we Moe forward? Ooh. Can we Moe forward, please? Is that okay? I don't want to upset you by being too Moe, okay? But I'm just kind of Moe right now. I'm just in a Moe mood. Is that okay?
It doesn't matter if they're capitalists, it doesn't matter if they're warmongering genocidal maniacs, because my enemies are worse. Either you are with me in my anti-imperialist crusade against the globalists and against the vaccines,
I just opened up my mouth and the Moe came out.
or you're
I don't know
part of
why.
the conspiracy as well. Grey Zone is a hub for people who think like this but have learned too many leftist ideas to just be a MAGA chud. People like Maupin are trying to be politicians for these people to support. Everyone I like are good Marxist-Leninists. Please disregard all the Marxist-Leninist groups who have disavowed me for being a reactionary loser. And all the people I hate are imperialists.
Ooh.
And that's how you wind up with the Grey Zone publishing an article calling Philosophy Tube a paid operative for the royal family, and
Moe's love. Oh my god, Moe's love.
CIA.
Moe's
But wait a
like.
second here.
Quite a different agenda. Modern art. I was called Nazgûl. I always felt very odd in left circles. I do not have any idea what imperialism
Is this Maupin
What I'm
Core?
telling you is, China has no rules.
Was that Maupin
20
Core?
years ago, they had cows that produced human milk.
Yes.
20 years ago, they had spiders
Yes.
that produced body armor, spider guts. Okay. They
Spider
had
gut
human
body
animal
armor.
Hybrids 30 years ago.
What's not
They've
to
got
like?
Giant human tissue farms. You know, you hear, oh, your Achilles is torn. We've got a grown in a lab, a tendon. It's not a frickin' tendon grown in a lab. It's a frickin' deal humanoid. These aren't humans. The way they get around it is they make them.
Wait a minute.
They make them a few.
The humanoids.
I bet you $10 million humanoids are real.
Is this where the moids come from?
You say so many different things without stopping. It's hard
Because
for
I'm
people
reporting
to
to the
absorb.
government agency so they'll listen and investigate. I'm decompartmentalizing.
Okay, but
this will be studied for years.
BreadTube is, or many people would say was, an online fandom bubble that developed in 2016 between the audiences of Lindsay Ellis, ContraPoints, HBomberGuy, and PhilosophyTube. A huge part of the origin of BreadTube can be found in responses to new atheism content on YouTube, and more specifically to the hangovers from the mass radicalization and harassment campaign, Gamergate, with the original content creators making lots of content responding to, debunking, and countering
Rogan had just discovered the Gish Gallop that day.
most
True.
egregious of the far-right personalities on YouTube, and then eventually moving on to talking about broader societal issues as the rise of the online far-right blended into the broader rise of the far-right around the world. In political terms, it's important to understand the formation of BreadTube in the context of progressive left liberal politics reacting to the explosion of neo-reactionary movements online. If BreadTubers could be broadly said to have one stance in common, it's anti-fascism, although because the tenuous existence of BreadTube came out of a group of content creators, some of them friends, sharing an audience, and then that audience creating the r/BreadTube subreddit, there is no consistent set of beliefs to which BreadTubers subscribe. Not all
Wait.
BreadTubers are even socialists,
Yeah.
let alone the same tendency.
I wouldn't even say
and
it's centered on the
quickly,
subreddit. The
original
subreddit's
creators
its own
started
thing.
disavowing BreadTube, pointing out that they hadn't chosen to be BreadTube and had no control over what it supposedly was. Now, of course, the training materials are available, but a lot of people have to learn on the job. We're all volunteers here, after all. There is nobody behind this. The algorithm drew together creators making similar content for a similar audience, and their fans celebrated the emergence of a new space for leftist content. It's really important to understand that most, if not all of this, has been driven by fans in order to understand what happened next.
A crazy part is these people will create moral panic over invented humanoid farms, but will disavow and get mad over veganism. Yeah, and then they'll put soy in there. They'll talk about how bad soy is, and they'll put soy in their brain force.
As new content creators popped up making leftist content and the politically engaged audience sought out new creators to label as breadtube, fans started paying attention to Destiny, a popular political debate streamer that breadtube fans were
I
excited
didn't realize
about
that Destiny was going to get talked to about in this.
personalities. In a direct response, Destiny made it clear and continues to make it clear that he finds out-and-out fascists like Lauren Southern far more agreeable than even very moderate leftists.
True.
However, the door had been opened and the breadtube audience had firmly connected to the political debate space, and a low, low bar had been set. Any debater to the left of Destiny could seize the niche of breadtube streamer, which is exactly what happened with streamers like Vorsh.
Because Jews don't actually control banks in the world.
There was a disproportionate number of Jewish control of banks in Germany during the Weimar Republic.
The surge in popularity of this kind of content creator made people like me deeply uncomfortable. And by people like me, I mean women, queer people, and other minorities, horrified as these ignorant and arrogant
Soylent Green?
making their bread and butter on harassment, rudeness, and an obnoxious refusal to ever learn anything unless it came at the direct expense of a marginalized creator dominated the space. Politically,
That
these
clip
debate
will
streamers are liberals, and
haunt
not just
Bush
liberals, but very
forever.
uninformed, politically ignorant liberals who don't understand why calling
Boy,
themselves socialists or
guys.
anarchists doesn't make their political positions authentically leftist, and certainly doesn't make them well thought out. This is again driven by the consumer demographic of breadtube, and by the basic dynamics of social media, which platform people who are controversial, well-liked by white straight cis men, and not necessarily people who are well-informed, or have even internally consistent politics. There also isn't a division between creator and audience. Debate streamers speak on average to a very young audience who understand that being a socialist is a good thing, but don't necessarily understand yet what it means. And the debate streamers themselves are the same, creating a feedback loop where all that matters is that the content creator never admit they're wrong about anything, no matter how well or poorly informed they are on any topic.
Maupin's book is about the CIA owning Vosh. Sophie doesn't want to be seen as pro-debate bro here.
Dealing with an issue of authorities.
Well, she's
in a
definitely
realm of
not.
Stigmatized knowledge. This has led to a point where there are debate streamers and the people in their online social sphere on one side, and on the other side of the breadtube schism, there are people who read books, do research, and process the information into thoughtful, considered content. However, both sides have equal claim to the title breadtube, either being creators from the original cast or having emerged from the fandom, and also both sides have ambivalent relationships to the term, so neither claim it outright. So, in lieu of better names, let me suggest Cringe Angry Bros and Cool Tube. So, now I've made it clear I'm not doing this video to make any friends, the conspiracy left. We have enough context now to examine some of the statements being made by Maupin and Greyzone. Abby is funded by the Queen, breadtube is
Oh god,
CIA.
yes.
But we still need a bit more history before we can really get into it.
The rise of breadtube wasn't entirely copacetic, of course. As with any social group, there were people who became infamous with the core community for being a bit of a shithead. Real heads remember the guy who called himself an anarchist but publicly defended chattel slavery.
One such figure in the early days of the breadtube community was Peter Coffin, a former comedy YouTuber and Bernie bro who, like many people, had moved further left during and following the 2016 election. Peter was
Cringe
producing
Angry
video
Bros.
essays mainly focusing on
Or
the
like what
attention
FG
economy
Signifier
and social
said,
capital
Augie,
concepts
angry
popular
white guy
among
yelling.
situationist Marxists like Guy Debord. Most people involved in early breadtube, myself included, interacted extensively with Peter, or even called them a friend, because Peter was very excited about and centered themselves in trying to organize the project of breadtube to raise class consciousness via the internet. However, through a series of public outrages and toxic fallouts with other creators, Peter essentially fell out the bottom of the community, first working with the most notable creators, then burning bridges and calling them all liberals, then making connections with newer, growing creators in the space, then burning bridges and calling them all liberals, and then eventually blocking the entire community, but continuing to talk about them from behind the block and calling us all liberals.
I'm sorry, but you need to read this. Call it BoJack to avoid tripping the censors.
Now Peter is a minor player in the conspiracy left, using
Oh my god. No. Oh my god. Chat, if you want to see my Peter Coffin video, yeah. So Peter Coffin actually got a hold of a clip of mine that some Nazgul was passing around and retweeted it, right? And just sent that clip of me all around the Coffin verse, all around to all these sussy bakas. So they hate my guts, right? And you know, I've had angry Caleb Maupin in my comments at one point, right? Yeah, like, let's see, Coffin. So 2 of these people I've actually had personal experience with, and neither was good, right? Neither was good.
Their platform to promote either, Peter, Bojack, The Great Reset, and other popular conspiracy left narratives.
Call it Bojack,
Peter,
okay.
much like George Galloway, clearly sees conspiracy theorists as a potential base for leftist politics, which is why they often repeat Great Reset talking points. The Great Reset is a narrative that the World Economic Forum and other
yeah, this is a big thing on the conspiracy.
Globalist organizations are planning
Like the
to
right-wing
reshape
conspiracies.
the economy post-pandemic to disenfranchise the majority for the benefit of the few elites. The phrase you'll hear people like Alex Jones and Peter Coffin repeat often, which they attribute to the globalists, is "you'll never own anything and you'll like it." So this is weird because conspiracy theories reflect intergroup social conflicts, and what the Great Reset reflects
Bojack is cocaine?
the effects of neoliberal
Really?
capitalism. But you have to offer that
Is that
systemic
right?
understanding as an alternative to talking about the globalists. Talking about the globalists is not a viable communist position. So now I want to make note of the phenomenon of cancelling because it's going to be relevant from here on. It may shock you to hear this, but as a woman with a following online, I have a bit of first-hand experience with random angry weirdos getting mad at me for no reason.
Oh, fuck, chat.
Paranoia
I have
begets
a...
paranoia, and fundamentally,
Oh, yes, it does.
the shape that
Oh,
mass
yes, it
cancelling
does.
takes is an incredibly paranoid.
Forgot I had
Stories
food. I
based
have
on
oatmeal.
suspicions based on
Oh my
hearsay
god.
are repeated about a person, and the easiest
As long
thing
as
in
it's
the world
Bojack and not
when you see
Hojack.
people saying these things about you is to feel like everyone is out to get you. Because for as far as you can see, there are people who are angry at you saying things that seemingly come from nowhere. Obviously, not all cancelling is created equal, and more often than not what people are really getting cancelled for are unspoken frustrations, cognitive biases such as bigotry, or just being kinda cringe. Actually, let's restate that more clearly. Most of what is called cancelling is either someone from a marginalised community or someone that the internet has deemed cringe becoming the main character of Twitter for a day because according to at least some people, they did something morally bad. People who are condemned by part of a community often lose viewers or followers, but people who respond to all criticism by saying, "I'm the real materialist here, you fucking liberal woke posers just don't understand real Marxism. Read Society of the Spectacle, then you'll understand how you're reinforcing the hegemonic mode by doing this to me," quickly drive themselves out of the community altogether. And this dynamic was repeating itself over and over and over and over, because in a space with no formalized system for dealing with social fallout, people turn into cops and abuse ideas of social propriety in order to police each other, allowing the loudest and most arrogant people who just ignore anything people are mad about to get away untouched perpetually. And the people who react to upset by acknowledging the upset in any way get the worst reactions. On the fringes, you have people who have been pushed out by a constant stream of cancelling and recancelling, and people who have self-exiled from the community because they are outraged that their favorite creators won't apologize for every perceived sin the fans have decided they committed. So, crucially here, the rise of BreadTube created a current of anti-fans and a collection of excluded personalities looking for an audience. The line between these is incredibly blurry because of the modern state of social media where everyone is expected to act somewhat as a brand manager and everyone is told that their access to a website gives them a platform. Let's go back to Michael Bakun to understand the dynamic at play here.
The rise of conspiracy theories also appears to closely track larger trends in public attitudes towards government. Surveys by the Pew Research Center demonstrate declining favorable public feelings toward a wide range of political institutions: Congress, numerous federal agencies, and the 2 major political parties. In general, levels of support have declined, sometimes dramatically, at least since the 1990s. The surveys also picked up a doubling from 2000 to 2010 in the proportion of respondents who considered themselves to be angry at the federal government. This group grew from 10% to 20% in the course of a decade. There were also predominantly negative views of financial institutions, large corporations, the national news media, and the entertainment industry. This is not to say that all those who distrust or are angry with government also believe in conspiracy theories described here. The decline in levels of public support for political institutions is a complex phenomenon with multiple causes that are separate from conspiracism. However, this phenomenon unquestionably provides a background that lends a surface support and credibility to conspiracy theories and to political skeptics to seek those theories out.
This is an important distinction to make. Conspiracy belief cannot be assigned directly to certain topics or communities as cleanly as you might necessarily think, and often conspiracy communities exist within larger ones. For example, Bakun also writes,
while believers in space brothers have sometimes been conspiracists, they have more often simply awaited the ET's arrival without positing an evil cabal in opposition.
So as we already covered, the cultic milieu sits within a broader realm of stigmatized knowledge, and when you have a community that broadly organizes around mistrust of the government or the current worldwide politico-economic system, it's somewhat natural for conspiracist communities to exist within it. What the rise of BreadTube did was create a space for people who shared fundamentally almost all the same beliefs, but for various reasons defined themselves in opposition to the larger community. And that's why when Caleb Maupin had a debate with Destiny, and then a debate with Vorsh, and then a back and forth with Mildred from the channel Thought Slime, Peter Coffin saw them as an ally and immediately invited him on their podcast. Peter Coffin at this point has become completely hitched to Caleb Maupin's star.
Actually, I mean, I'm guessing Sophie's going to talk about this, but in case she doesn't, there's also like I would say like a ideological connection between Coffin and Maupin. I wouldn't call Coffin like an open, you know, Nazgul. I don't think Coffin's ever professed belief in, like Duganism or anything like that. But they are definitely, actually, I don't even know, chat, because officially there are no pronouns in Peter Coffin's bio due to Haas of Infrared telling them that the pronouns were cringe. And so, but I'm assuming they're still they, them. Anyway, there is a political, you know, there is an ideological parallel between these two, right? And it's that they're both reactionary leftists. So yeah, it's definitely not just like a camaraderie of misfits or, you know, outcasts or anything like that. This is
they are very much in his orbit, and despite everything about Maupin, this isn't unique. Maupin has actual honest-to-God students, Maupinists, followers of Maupinism.
Oh no.
I am to LA
anti-intersectional, yeah.
Ra's al Ghul was to Gotham.
But that's a whole other video I can't get into now. Much to the chagrin of people who would rather pretend BreadTube was never real, and the larger group of people who are sick of hearing about it, myself included, in 2021, Caleb Maupin published BreadTube Serves Imperialism.
Oh my god.
The book is highly praised by Max Blumenthal and George Galloway. Holy shit.
George Galloway!
It looks like Blumenthal's quote for the back cover.
Doomer Nazgul Alliance.
He spelled attention at attention, and they just put it on the book. Okay, you know what they say about judging books by their covers. Maybe we should get into this thing. The basic thesis of BreadTube Serves Imperialism is that the American ruling class is at war with itself, split between the isolationist white supremacist Trump faction and the imperialist warmongering liberals. This does reflect some amount of real observable truth, because America is clearly very divided, although both factions are equally warmongering and imperialist. This thesis is very much in line with the talk about internal divisions that you can see on Fox News, or, in its most extreme form, on Alex Jones's shows. In the fully sci-fi world of Alex Jones, the breakaway society conspiracy theory is that the Earth is like a huge egg, and the liberal globalists are going to destroy the Earth when they leave in their big spaceship. The reality that this reflects is that increasingly far-right and religious fundamentalists...
Chat. Isn't that Utana? Like, what is the speech... Xerxes, are you in here? What is the Utana speech? Like, the world is the egg, and we are the chick. Like, to bring revolution is to break free of the bound. Like, what is the whole, like, the world is an egg, and we are that chick, and we must break free, like, to survive or something? I don't remember, chat. You know what I'm talking about? And it's the student council in Utana, right? Whenever they go up to the, their meeting patio or whatever that is, right? They say this, like, speech.
Fundamentalist elements have been gearing up for a second American Civil War for
That he didn't-
decades now, and
he
by
didn't spell it
framing
with
the
four T's.
liberals as the
Nice.
aggressors driving the division in
Nice.
society, they can propagandize and mobilize their base into preparing for war. It's not that the division isn't real, it's just the particular framing.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
liberal
Xerxes
hegemony-
has this for me. Xerxes has got this for me. If it cannot hatch from its shell, the chick will die without ever being born. We are the chick. The world is our egg. If we don't break free, if we don't break the world's shell, we will die without truly being born. Oh my god.
Wokeness, imperialism, used interchangeably with globalism, are the driving forces. In the book, Caleb won't say in totally explicit terms that he finds Trump's faction to be the heroic, morally superior side, but it's pretty obvious that's
pretty clear.
During the presidential election, you know, I'm a leftist, I come out of a left background, but I saw
A leftist.
Donald Trump speak, and there were many times
There's
that he
too many
spoke, and I
people.
applauded. I heard him talk about how
There's too many people that call themselves leftists and they don't practice leftism. They're not even on, like, you know, they're not even in a leftist social group. They make common cause with a bunch of Nazguls, right? But they want to call themselves a leftist. It's ridiculous. And we got to start calling it out when we see it, right?
you know, there's this elite that is not loyal to the United States, these international bankers.
So what does this have to do with BreadTube? Well, Caleb educates his readers on the history of counter-gangs, a divide-and-conquer tactic used by regimes trying to suppress uprisings in which a synthetic opposition is formed to suppress the organic rebellion against the ruling class. That's BreadTube, what Caleb calls the synthetic left, which I cannot say enough. Thank you, Caleb. That sounds fucking rad as hell. What a cool name. BreadTube and their followers, according to Caleb, are a counter-gang, and he repeatedly tries to amp up the fear about Antifa super soldiers inspired by BreadTube liberals who are going to smash and burn small businesses, because all anyone on the synthetic left cares about is smashing. Though at times he makes it clear it's normal for counter-gangs not to know they're being supported by powerful allies, at other points he writes things like this.
In many streams, it seems apparent that Vosh has handlers or advisors who are often more familiar with Marxism than he is. Often, Vosh will be seen stuttering.
It's called his audience.
His way through explaining concepts that he does not clearly understand, clearly quoting someone else, most likely, an individual who learned the concept in an academic, not activist setting.
Yes, Caleb, Vosh is a deeply incurious person. He doesn't know anything about Marxism. I'm not going to disagree with you there, but Vosh's handlers and his advisors are called his Twitch chat and Google. He's trying to cobble together enough
YouTube chat
bits and pieces that his
and really website chat, really website chat more than anything.
Socialist
BGG,
ethically owning everyone else with his big muscular brain.
It has become clear to many viewers that the list of quotes has been prepared by someone else, and that Vosh knows very little about Russian or Chinese history. However, this has not stopped this smug video game player from occupying the position of being the primary Marxist voice on the internet.
The guy's a streamer. Look, I'm not defending his ignorance, to be clear. I find the guy contemptible, but I'm not going to take his ignorance as evidence there's a CIA agent just off screen handing
It's
him
JK,
quotes
meow,
either.
meow,
This is a social
meow.
media dynamic. A guy who could really benefit from
Consent
sitting
is
down
queen,
away from public
yes.
attention for like a
Yes.
year and reading some books is feeding a mishmash of nonsense to his audience who also don't read any books. It's frustrating, but it isn't a sinister conspiracy. The book more or less starts by profiling the people Caleb considers to be BreadTube, including Destiny, who nobody on Earth would call BreadTube, and several small streamers barely anyone has heard of, but not all of the biggest players in the actual formation of the clique. It's very strange, and it becomes clear pretty quickly to the reader that the people listed are largely just online politics content creators who Caleb has tangled with in some fashion, which is why that part of the book is Caleb's sincere attempt to dig up as much dirt as he can on them. I'm not going to get into the horrible shit he's trying to spread, but Maupin even publishes details of one content creator's family and their criminal convictions. This is so cheap and scummy, and so far from what anyone would call journalism, let alone the writings of a socialist. It was the great American socialist Eugene Debs who said, "While there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free." And yet Maupin constantly tries to draw attention to criminality, lack of professionalism, and even drug use, because he's a reactionary talking to reactionaries, trying to scare them into thinking Antifa is coming to steal their lunch money. In one passage about Mildred...
I mean, I will come and steal their lunch money as soon as I do my nails.
From the channel Thought Slime, he says that her
videos tend to fixate on things like slime, feces, genitalia, and other things
fixate on
ugly.
That's what Thought Slime talks about.
Talking about
slime, feces, and genitalia.
Maybe writing a book intended to give
sometimes
as much detail
in
as
the
possible
same
about your
scenario.
political enemies to neo-Nazis. Andrew Anglin loves this book. Andrew Anglin, for the blessedly uninformed, is an American neo-Nazi and one of the lead moderators of Stormfront, the neo-Nazi messaging board. Anglin wrote a great big post on Stormfront about how good the book is when it came out, and it's very helpful because it's basically just a decoded version of what Maupin's trying to say. Breadtube is the term these people use to refer to themselves. That includes Piker, Vorsh, and some other freaks and traps on YouTube and Twitch. It probably also includes TYT. Piker is the genetic nephew. Genetic nephew. Neo-Nazis write one single normal sentence ever challenge. Difficulty rating impossible.
Genetic nephew as opposed to...
Anglin finishes the post. Obviously, normal working class people
Quit
are not
king
into
shaming
gay sex
Maupin.
or all of this progressive stack identity politics stuff. This is all stuff from universities that you could never get a factory worker or a farmer to go along with. Basically, communists believed in empowering the working class, whereas Breadtube believes in forcing decadent, elitist values on the working class. Yeah, elitist values like gay sex. Bottom comrades, we must rise up and end the oppression of the subretariat by the dom.
Rise up and get dicked down. Yes.
Hey, Andrew,
I'm on board for
just
that.
so you know, every Spartan
Oh my God.
warrior had hot, wet in his ass and loved it. Anyway, it's all very telling that Andrew Anglin loves this
Meow.
book so much because neo-Nazis love the model
Meow.
of the world that talks about imperialism, globalism, because it fits in perfectly with their great replacement shtick. Anglin loves the anti-imperialism. Can you hear me using
Meow.
air quotes here? Maupin's anti-imperialism. Anyway, look, this Nazi's talking about imperialism, all these conspiracy theorists are talking about imperialism. I'm realizing I should probably provide a working definition of imperialism before we carry on so we can distinguish
Charlemagne
between the
is my
actual
non-genetic
phenomenon and
uncle.
what these clowns mean when they say the word.
Does that mean you're a
Imperialism is no longer the way
Merovingian?
it was for empires of yesteryear. I mean, it wasn't really that way for them either, but this image that people have of troops and armies occupying imperial territories is a very narrow view of empire. In reality, imperialism has a lot to do with economic domination, arguably more than it has to do with military domination in the modern context. States like ancient Rome had client states, which were dependent on Rome economically and had to follow the political mandates of the Senate, even though they weren't technically part of the empire, and today much of the world finds itself in similar relationships to more powerful and richer countries, especially America. This is because capitalism is a system by which the rich get richer on an individual and international scale. The legacy of colonialism means a lot of things, but one of the things that it means is that the...
Are you telling me that Charlemagne the God is not a Merovingian? Okay, that's news to me.
The world today is broadly divided between the descendants of the beneficiaries of colonialism, whose countries were able to take the wealth plundered from the rest of the world and turn it into even more wealth, and the people in the countries that were plundered. Enormous monopolies in the imperial core grow to such a scale that they're essentially able to own whole countries in the imperial periphery. Countries whose resources and labor their production relies on. Oligarchs rich on investment in speculative markets, playing with debt and fictitious capital, while people directly impacted by their decisions starve or go homeless, are able to buy political influence to continuously protect both their profits and their picture of what a moral, fair world looks like. And it's a terrible picture of what a moral, fair world looks like, because we're talking about billionaires, usually with dynastic intergenerational wealth. America controls much
The
of the world
Merovingians were the Louis?
power, because
He was a
the
Carolingian.
market is the freedom of
What?
the most powerful, the richest party to do
So not
whatever
related
they
to
want.
Jesus
American
then.
money buys goods manufactured in countries
Not related to
dependent on the
Jesus.
dollar
No.
because exporting capital
No.
from America forces those countries into dependence.
Did not have
by
Joe
design.
Star blood.
American foreign aid, even massive
This
shipments of
date
wheat
sucks.
or
Oh my
cotton
God.
don't help other countries, but rather completely flatten
I
their
just saw the
domestic
shirt.
and cotton
Yeah,
markets,
it is cute.
devaluing the crops of local farmers and forcing dependence on America. And if they refuse the aid, America quickly threatens
Charlotte.
Violence, military intervention,
Charlemagne and his buddy Astolfo.
military domination aren't irrelevant in modern conversations about imperialism.
Yeah.
They just aren't most of the imperialism
Meow, meow,
actively
meow.
happening, because most of the time, the threat of violence is enough. But the threat of violence has to be credible for imperialism to work. This is why America models themselves as the world police, because they need to constantly show the rest of the world how powerful their military is and constantly give themselves a justification to upscale their military spending. Inside the imperial core, the engine of capitalist growth works as it ever does, walking on two legs, apocalypse and future. Surpluses of labor need to be absorbed with low-paying jobs, so working to stop some kind of collapse or catastrophe works perfectly. Surpluses of capital need to be absorbed by big projects to throw money into, so why not imagine a bright, beautiful future sponsored by Dow Chemical? Usually, of course, these two work in concert, keeping the machine running. In the 60s, it was the space race, with the promise of a bright future among the stars on one hand, and on the other, the nuclear Armageddon implicit in any conversation about whether the US or USSR would put rockets into orbit first. Today's imperialism is green, with American elites like Bill Gates warning that the global north has to lead the way in coming decades, because on a purely economic level, if a different country than America led the charge in combating climate change, America would have been defeated in the global free market. Imperialist capitalism dictates what these global conversations are about, how we imagine the future and how we conceptualize threats to it, so that we can be grateful to the status quo for keeping us from destruction and cheer on imperial powers as they shape the future for us. So yeah, the rest of BreadTube is seriously lacking in this regard, but it's not because they're paid, it's because of imperial core privilege and how the ruling class obfuscates international struggle from the imaginative landscape. It's because you're looking at a bunch of content creators and gamers who are responding to fascists, American conservatives, and anti-feminists online. Yes, they could do a better job talking about geopolitics. No, and I can't believe I have to say this, none of them are CIA. So the reason I gave so much background on the schism in BreadTube is because anyone aware of BreadTube would be aware of the deep divide in the community, the messy political alignments of various members, and the deep disagreements, often on the specific issues of imperialist foreign policy that Maupin is talking about. And Caleb Maupin claims to have worked on this book for...
Although I can't say the same thing about the alt-trans.
...a year, which, if he wasn't a hack fraud as well as a conspiracy theorist and a Nazball, would probably have led him to talk more intelligently about this loose affiliation of YouTubers and streamers. Instead, Caleb uses the idea that YouTubers go viral sometimes as an example of shady secrets in the BreadTube elite.
Some of them have odd skeletons in their closets. Natalie Wynn's sudden rise to prominence, Vosh's shady history in relation to topics like child pornography and lack of charisma. All of the...
Chat, when can I get on this list? Maybe if my former mods could go work for Caleb Maupin for a while. They should, I mean, I don't know, maybe they might find an ideological, you know, resonance there, right? You know, the true communism is definitely over there with Caleb Maupin, so yeah. Like, this is like, because I just want that list to include, and also, you know, speaking of odd skeletons, can I tell you about NCC? Can I tell you about NCC, the alt-right Canadian streamer who cheats at Amogus, refuses to play Final Fantasy 13-2 after Final Fantasy 13-1, has a secret VTuber that's sauce as fuck. I heard she said some bad things about Britney Spears, right? And let's see, what else is there? Oh yeah, she's plural. She's plural. I want those words to come out of Caleb Maupin's lips. Make it happen, okay? That's my final order to you.
These indicate that BreadTube has powerful allies who are using them to serve a purpose other than communist revolution.
Caleb's historic examples of similar programs form the bulk of his arguments. For example, he claims that while the USSR turned more socially conservative and progressive socialists in the West expressed their discomfort with that, the CIA exploited the division, saying,
"During this time, many pro-Marxist college professors and writers in Europe received covert support from the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. They were carefully being nudged to push a more anti-Soviet brand of Marxism focused on cultural issues rather than class struggle.
Per the book, breadtube is
most likely serving one section of the American ruling elite and the intelligence agencies.
And then, on Christmas Eve the same year, the Grey Zone published leaked files expose serious PSYOPs veteran astroturfing breadtube star to counter COVID restriction critics. Buckle in, we're in for some extreme.
This was so good. This was like.
The article begins.
Okay.
Leaked documents have revealed a state-sponsored and
Unironically, this was Abigail's like dossier moment. This was the most wild and over the skis like set of allegations that one could imagine, right?
influence operation designed to undermine critics of the British government's coronavirus policies by astroturfing a prominent founder of the breadtube clique of anti-fascist YouTube influencers.
It's about a video that Abby Thorne of PhilosophyTube recently released, which at the time, Grey Zone staff apparently had decided was
Oh my
part
god,
of a
thank you,
plan to
JK.
mind
Meow.
control vaccine-hesitant people and bring them under the thumb of the New
Meow,
World
meow,
Order.
meow,
The
meow,
video,
meow,
which
meow,
wasn't actually
meow,
out
meow,
at the
meow,
time, was
meow,
about
meow,
how
meow,
different
meow,
types
meow,
of vaccine-hesitant
meow,
people
meow,
defend their
meow,
refusal
meow,
to get a
meow,
vaccine,
meow,
and
meow.
prominently featured explanations from vaccine-hesitant people
Thank
in their
you.
own words. Not to debate or debunk them, but to examine reality and talk about why people move away from it. This was all made possible by a study that Abby and others at a group called Challenging Pseudoscience had conducted with help from the Royal Institution. For Grey Zone, however, this vaccine apologia was altogether too much.
Anti-vaccine sentiments are
We can't have vaccine apologia.
and this is just my speculation, but Grey Zone's pivot to anti-vaccine content seems like the reason that co-founder Ben Norton left the publication. He's started his own thing, Multipolarista, which sticks to the aims of a multipolar world, and he hasn't shared any of the anti-vax stuff that Max Blumenthal seems so
What's your favorite? I love that one.
And he left about the same time
I
as they
love
started
that.
closing vaccines. Max strikes again.
The article, which is showing supposedly hacked documents discussing the plans for the PhilosophyTube video, was written by Max.
Supposedly file folders of NCC? Oh my god, there's way too many parallels, aren't there?
Blumenthal and someone called Kit Clarenberg. Oh my god, why did these guys keep
Are these people
dressing
by Max
themselves
Blumenthal?
Like this? Why do you look like side characters from Better Call Saul?
My Caleb Maupin?
Also, Kit, your Twitter bio could use some work, because I haven't seen any journalism so far, buddy.
Wait.
So the article, which at time of recording is still up, paints a connection
haven't heard of
between
that.
PhilosophyTube and the royal family by way of
Clarenberg?
basically not understanding in the slightest way that what the royal institution is, because they're desperate to prove that breadtube are all controlled by sinister forces. The actual funding
Wait,
for
the
study, as
Royal
Abby discusses in the
Institute
video,
equal
came from
royal
George
family?
Soros's Open Society Foundation, so they really missed a great opportunity to tie Soros in as well, you know? Their links to a Syria PSYOPs veteran are about as tenuous and nonsensical as you'd expect. Someone Abby works with on Challenging Pseudoscience is on a commission which is headed by someone called Peter Daszak, who was involved with the blah blah blah. How does anyone read this, honestly? The whole program would be sinister if the royal family actually had anything to do with it, and the people they say are involved were actually involved, and if you agree that vaccines are bad. So, you know, solid reporting there, guys. The article has since been edited, but the original really doubled down on courting reactionaries, listing one of the groups victimized by breadtube as
Female high school athletes who complain about being forced to compete against biological males.
But
Grey
according to
Zone
Kit,
really
the
fell
only reason
off.
anyone would call the article transphobic is because it talks about a trans woman. Look,
Ben left when it was getting
this is
goofy.
in line with Maupin's slipperiness. Like, he'll say that he's happy to work with anti-abortion advocates, or claim to not be anti-trans, but he'd be happy to work with transphobes. And unfortunately, I'm used to this shit from
Wait,
Maupin
who
by
says
now,
that
but
shit?
God, the used...
Like, who said, what a weird fucking statement. Hey, not anti-trans here, but hey, if there's any anti-trans people out there, let's get together and do some, let's collaborate. Like, any anti-trans people out there? Any anti-trans people? Any takers? What the heck? What the heck?
Car salesmen seem to be multiplying.
What is the Royal
Clarenberg continues
Institute?
to be a weird Twitter reply guy. Even now the
Meow,
video is out,
meow,
claiming it to be
meow,
a
meow,
limited hangout, an
meow,
intelligence
meow,
community term
meow,
for revealing
meow,
a part of the
meow.
program as damage control. Debate me, debate me. I have a 2006 Honda Civic
Meow.
the family would look great in.
So why are we talking about this?
Meow.
I think the breadtubers CIA conspiracy theory so much attention because it's the first big breakthrough the conspiracy.
What is wrong with me?
Concocted, rubbing their little brain cells together to produce this new theory, totally their own, and it's drawn them all together.
Jimmy Dore had Max Blumenthal on his show
Jimmy Dore.
to discuss the article and Sean's video about him, claiming that Sean had clearly been boosted by the YouTube algorithm, which is to say,
Oh yeah, the
whoever
fucking
controls
algorithm.
the YouTube algorithm.
The secret
And then you have
master of the algorithm.
Sean, who made a video
Danabo.
about you, attacking you.
It's definitely
who
Danabo.
I actually didn't know he was affiliated.
Did you know
with
that, chat?
but he's
Danabo controls the
considered part of
algorithm.
Constellation.
That's why his
It's very
channel
strategically
doesn't do that
placed.
well, because
It was
Danabo is incredibly
algorithmically
humble.
boosted on YouTube.
Oh, it was
Incredibly
definitely algorithmically
unbelievably,
boosted on YouTube. No fucking
almost
doubt about
insufferably
that.
humble,
That was given
Danabo,
the favorite
right?
treatment on YouTube, the CIA.
So
and
humble.
The intelligence beholden that Google and YouTube, they're in bed with the fucking.
And so that's why his
intelligence.
channel
Of course
doesn't
they are,
do
Google.
And in the
that
episode,
well.
they also watch a video where Maupin
He
is
could
talking
make
to one
it
of his
pop if he
disciples,
wanted to. If he
Jackson
wanted
Hinkle,
to
about
a
the
video like
breadtube
that, he just
conspiracy.
that's not who Danabo
Maupin
is.
actually quoted in the Grey Zone article saying,
It does not surprise me at all to find out there is documented evidence that the British royal family and an intelligence contractor is bankrolling the work of
But Danabo,
Abigail
if you can make my
Thorne.
channel do a
It
little bit
lines up
better,
with
that'd be great.
everything I have observed about
Okay.
her and the breadtube
Okay.
trend overall.
Did it deal?
and you know, when he talks about the book, Maupin insists that it's other people uncharitably mischaracterizing it when they say
Yeah.
that he's saying breadtube is CIA. But not only is that absolutely what the book does say, but his orbiters like Peter Coffin are pretty explicit about what is really being said here.
Something
I
y'all
never
need to
thought
think
of Peter
more
Coffin
about.
as a
couple of days ago,
Caleb Maupin
Philosophy
orbiter,
was
but
outed as working with USAID
I guess it makes
aligned
sense.
imperialist
I
NPOs
never know.
and the British government. IMO.
I never know how many people, you know, Caleb Maupin really has, or for Peter Coffin for that matter.
That probably has something to do with Lindsay Ellis quitting. Just saying.
Jesus Christ. So Lindsay Ellis is CIA. Okay, who else is CIA, Peter? Is Doug Walker CIA? Is Jake Paul CIA? Maupin also went on Peter's stream to talk about the book, where, hilariously, he said,
If Lenin were alive today and he saw this happening, he would have written a book about breadtube. You can bet if Mao was around today, he would have written a book about breadtube.
Yes, Caleb, you're just like Lenin.
Oh my
You're just like
God.
Mao Zedong. Everyone is very proud of you, and you're definitely a
Really?
real communist.
Really?
Here too, Maupin says that anyone
Oh
who's
my
saying
God.
that he said that breadtube is CIA is taking his words uncharitably, and at this point it's just absurd. This is the conspiracy left
Meow, meow.
conspiracy theory to prove how they're cool and normal, and everyone
Meow.
who opposes them is a fake liar. Everyone's getting in on it. Maupin
You
may
mean
as well just own what he's
NCCIA,
saying without his
okay?
invention. But hold up a sweet, tender, loving minute there, bucko. Is this an original conspiracy theory? Let's investigate.
In the chapter, What and Who is BreadTube, Maupin lists all the content creators he thinks are involved. But then, he also talks about someone called Dr. Steve Hassan.
I mean, I've got more files than the CIA, so no funny business. Who needs the CIA when we've got crab ops? Anyway,
Maupin says
we've got
has
crab
friends
ops,
on the
chat.
inside, and
Crab ops.
Definitely not a part of the breadtube universe, but certainly
Crab
lurks in the background
ops.
of
I've
discussions
got
about
crab
quote,
ops.
deprogramming.
Crab ops.
Okay, this is promising. We have some kind of sinister, shadowy figure pulling all the strings from behind the scenes. So who is this? I've never heard of this person before. Steve Hassan is a pop psychologist and cult researcher whose main contribution to cult research, the bite model, has been debunked by more
bite
serious
model!
cult
I forgot
researchers.
about the
But
bite
he
model!
called
Oh, I
Trump's
love it.
following
Okay,
a
listen,
cult, so that's
listen.
probably like
I unironically love the bite model for two reasons. Now, the first reason is that I like to bite. That's just a thing. I do. The second reason is that in French, the word B-I-T-E means something else. Yeah. Some people know.
Caleb doesn't
Some
like him.
people
Just like
know.
the Grey Zone's Syria PsyOps veteran, Dr. Hassan has next to nothing to do with breadtube.
I just totally
Actually,
got
he
a-
thinks that
a-
trans people are
a new
cult, and he
audience
tweeted
of
about
French
how
coomers.
hypno-porn is
Did I just-
brainwashing to trick people into transing their gender.
Did I just earn a new, like, French Canadian, like, Coomer following?
Which would probably make it pretty hard for him to engage
Come on
with the
in.
majority of breadtube at all. So I don't really understand what reason Caleb has for bringing him up here. Oh, except maybe that Dr. Hassan was raised Jewish, and every time Caleb Maupin points a finger, there is a Jewish person on the other end. Okay, let's see what Caleb actually
true.
uses as evidence that this
That does
kind
seem
of
to be true.
manipulation could be taking place.
There's a historical precedent for this called the Congress for Cultural Freedom.
Mhm.
During the 1950s, the CIA had a program for covertly funding left-wing voices, artists, intellectuals, and others. They set up a magazine called
What?
Partisan Review in the United States. They set up a
La
magazine called Encounter in Britain, and in Germany they had a magazine called Der Monat. That's where the Frankfurt School received a lot of its funding. And
Oh my god! It was cultural Marxism the whole time! You only have to Google CIA Frankfurt School to see it.
Je
This is
veux
this
te
cultural Marxism
voir
conspiracy theory from the
dans
LaRouche
un film
movement,
pornographique
Caleb is part of. Holy shit!
en action
Okay, shit,
avec ta...
Lyndon LaRouche, American politician, anti-Semite, and conspiracy theorist, spread the idea
La.
that Marxists in the West were being manipulated into
La.
hating Stalinist cultural reforms that made the USSR more conservative because he was a reactionary and didn't like the Communist Party of the USA being progressive. So they all had to be CIA agents. He called Angela Davis a CIA agent. She went to jail, and he called her a fucking CIA agent. I want to say Maupin is living up to being the Lyndon LaRouche of our time, but I'm really worried he'll take that as a compliment. Would it
Oh
shock
no,
you
he
to
would,
learn that
wouldn't he?
LaRoucheite cultural Marxism
He totally
also
would.
claims that European leftists are paid by, yep, the royal family?
They have this
Yes,
obsession.
This isn't just Caleb's thing.
They have
Even
this
Gray's
obsession,
getting it.
yes,
God, I can't believe
yes.
it's still
So those
cultural
aren't.
Marxism
Oh my
all this
god.
time. I think H-Bomb's video on that was
I've
one of the
actually
first
seen.
breakthrough
I've actually
videos I
heard of
ever
this
watched.
shit. I've actually heard of this stuff.
The woke Ouroboros is complete.
The woke
Sad, though,
Ouroboros
really.
eating
They
its
don't
tail.
make
Yum,
cultural
yum, yum,
Marxism
yum, yum.
conspiracists like
Oh.
they used to. We used to get lectured by a buff Swedish beefcake.
No
Now we have
way.
Beaker from the Muppets
Is he
wearing his
real?
dad's suit. Getting more serious again, this is a perfect demonstration of
Oh
how
my
you
god.
use conspiracy theories as part of a leftist project. As Michael Buckham
Meow.
There can certainly be conspiracy theories that are not anti-Semitic, but contemporary conspiracy theories manifest a dynamics of expansion. The movement from event conspiracies to systemic conspiracies to super conspiracies. As this progression occurs, two characteristics appear. First, the more a conspiracy theory seeks to explain, the larger its domain of evil. The
Oh my
conspiracy
god.
includes more and more malevolent agents. Second,
That's
the more
it.
exclusive the conspiracy theory.
At first it was Irene is harassing everybody. Then DSD proved that it was false, right? And then they move right to, well, maybe it's her mods. Right? The ones that are modding the chat and actively fighting the trolls? Yeah. They're doing it at the same time. I don't know, chat. They're octopuses. I guess. I don't know. We have to make it work somehow. Even if we have to say that Irene has multiple personalities in order to make our weird ass fucking hate manifesto theory work on some conceptual level, right? We require a plural Irene, because one is never enough, I guess.
The less acceptable it is to disprove. For skeptics and their evidence are increasingly identified with the powers of evil. The result of those processes is that the villains who populate conspiracy theories tend to multiply rapidly. Conspiracists find it difficult to keep out new putative evildoers. UFOlogists begin with conspiracy theories that had nothing to do with anti-Semitism.
More
Yet in
Irenes,
some
I
cases
wish.
end up
God.
testifying to the veracity of the protocols of the elders of Zion.
It's a one-way
Unfortunately,
train, and
it's
it has
just me
no
in
fucking
here.
Brakes. So your best possible option is to jump
I'm all
off
you
before it
got.
gathers
Sorry,
speed.
chat.
Hey, I landed that one. Good metaphor. Good for me. Conspiracy theories reflect intergroup social conflicts. And it's just pretty sad to be able to say the social conflict being reflected here is that Caleb Maupin and the Grey Zone feel embarrassed they aren't as popular on YouTube as other leftists, and that Peter Coffin used to be friends with them before embarrassing themselves publicly, and that the audience they all share dislike the audience that breadtube creators share and the content they make. Besides, all of this massively overstates the significance of leftist content creators. Streamers have found a new level of popularity, but the entirety of the leftist content sphere is just a teeny little blip in the grand scale of YouTube and Twitch, which for over a decade now have had shockingly far-right, reactionary, and bigoted politics as the absolute default. The internet is still a growing new thing, and the pattern of social development on it is fascinating. The most easy to produce, attention-grabbing content will always dominate a space without sufficient moderation or conscious thought by the people running it, and then, as audiences get tired of and desensitized to constant shock content, they turn to more well-produced, high-effort stuff. Often biased by who already made money off cheap shock content and therefore has the money to produce more, but eventually more people will fill that niche. Hopefully, people with a basic understanding of what they're talking about and the ability to establish some expertise and scientific rigor in the space, or at the very least, the appearance of it. And that's BreadTube. It's just a dynamic of the space. That's also why tons of people have noticed and
Oh my God,
correctly pointed
chat.
out that BreadTube is overwhelmingly white. It's a dynamic of YouTube audiences and how the algorithm pigeonholes marginalized creators. It's worth engaging with those kinds of criticisms because these systemic biases have real effects, just like it's worth pointing out how lacking in geopolitical understanding many content creators are, because acknowledging that kind of problem
Feels
can allow
so
us
good
to
right
tackle
now.
it.
This
For
is
Maupin,
perfect
though,
stream.
BreadTube is the CPUSA to his Lyndon LaRouche.
I hope you don't mind, like, a break from the drama. I mean, I guess this is drama of another sort, but it's just like, it's so decentralized, chat. Like, this is drama I can deal with. This is stuff I can eat popcorn to. And most of the time, drama for me, like, when I have to deal with it, it's, like, really scary. And really personal, too. Like, really weirdly personal.
Bunch of CIA-funded stooges trying to
Good
lock
night,
the real
Impact.
Marxists
Meow
out of the
meow.
conversation.
Meow
One
meow.
gets the sense, watching enough Maupin, that his audience are probably a bit older on average than BreadTube's. It's in the way he talks, like he wants to emulate being an expert on something. That's why he dresses like that, right?
Kind of like Ben
it's this
Shapiro.
aesthetic of
Ben
intellectualism
Shapiro's,
where he's
like,
dressing
way
for the
of
job he
speaking.
wants, but the people he idolizes are all grifting shitbergs he thinks are geniuses, so he's accidentally dressing like exactly what he is, a snake oil salesman. He takes himself incredibly seriously, but he doesn't want to put any
Good night,
effort in making
Impact.
his work more suited to the medium, which creates this kind of naive feeling. So he simultaneously looks young and old, which is why there's such a bring your child to work day energy to the guy. And that's part of the weird magic of the internet. Older people have been online not just
Wait, there's a feral buff ex-Swedish YouTuber out there?
for less of their lives proportionately, but often
Who is that?
literally fewer hours of their lives than younger people.
Are we talking
So
about the
younger
golden
people
one?
Online can spot a nice solid type of guy from a mile off, but many older people can't. Look, I guess I'm speaking about the whole conspiracy left right now, but there's this naivety to the kind of world that each of them projects that says to me the audience they all share are themselves kind of naive. And that makes the way these guys act seem somewhere between gross and absolutely horrifyingly predatory, at least from where I'm standing.
Geek Prime, meow.
And then I was going to go on from here to a conclusion where I talked about broad lessons on the topic, but then something happened which made the conspiracy left utterly explode into the most
What?
unbelievable takes, mental gymnastics,
What?
and new conspiracy
What?
theories. Russia invaded Ukraine.
Oh my god, no. I kind of forgot this was going on for a hot second.
I'm not saying I'm a Nazi. I don't see a lot of difference. Widely denounced wokeness, postmodern stuff. Everybody around you thinks that you're wrong.
On February 24th, 2022, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced an invasion of Ukraine, calling it a special military operation to demilitarize and denazify the country, though his speech strongly implied the erasure of Ukrainian sovereignty altogether. Shortly after his speech, Russian forces began a ground invasion of Ukraine along with airstrikes, and at time of writing, thousands of civilians have been killed with thousands more wounded. Over 2 million Ukrainian refugees have fled, although hundreds of thousands of people are still trapped in cities like Mariupol, which Russian forces have surrounded and shelled. The Western response
You
was
clipped the
broadly
bite
sympathetic to
model?
the Ukrainian people, with many people
The bite
organizing
model? Oh
fundraisers to
no!
support the victims of the invasion. Though the
Let's
far
make
right
Irene
seems
look
split
slutty
between
today.
whether
Oh my
fighting
god,
inside
I make
Ukraine
Irene
would
look
be
slutty
defending
today.
the West from Eastern threat, or whether Putin is the last hope to save the white race from globalist liberalism. As the invasion began, the conspiracy left immediately began denying the invasion altogether. As the military project became undeniable, they shifted to claiming that it wasn't technically an invasion, but rather an operation to protect
But it's only dirty in French,
persecuted
so
by Ukrainian nationalists. Here in my editing chair, recording audio at the last minute, I can say up until now, their primary focus has been on the presence
Heckin'
of
valid.
Nazis in Ukraine and the Ukrainian military. It's actually a good case study for everything we discussed
Super.
earlier about how misinformation
Heckin'
comprises true facts
valid.
being used in a malicious
I wouldn't
way,
be like
or
in
being
a
promoted to
magical
frame
girl
the conversation
anime that's
the way
like
one party
super
wants.
heckin'
The
valid.
Russian invasion
Like,
is indefensible, and the
it's like a
mass
super
slaughter of
heckin' valid
civilians
version
is
of
not
Sailor
something
Moon.
history will look kindly on, and the presence of the Azov battalion doesn't change that. Then, as Russian citizens began protesting the war, well, Peter Coffin's particular strategy of denial is to dip into classic anti-Semitic tropes, literally
Oh my
claiming
god!
George Soros is funding any
Oh
resistance
my
within
god!
and without Russia to Putin's invasion.
Likely funded by Open Society. Guess Open Society is feeling the burn.
And that's completely asinine. Bernie Sanders is an American congressman. He doesn't have to be paid by George Soros to be
Yeah.
anti-Russia. And Peter
Yeah.
Coffin went on Moats to
Sorry,
talk with George
I'm
Galloway
being
about
silly.
What Vosh thinks about Ukraine.
What about left of the Democrats? Where are the socialists and progressives in the United States lining up on this?
Well, I would say you end up seeing a lot of people who are identifying as maybe a socialist or a communist or what have you. And those folks are not necessarily really taking a different line than the Democrats. I mean, we see people like the various streamers, the people like Vosh, or there's any number of the Surf. A lot of streamers.
You said no
a lot
comment
of
check after that, didn't you?
YouTubers,
I
a
know
lot
you
of
said it. You're
these
obsessed
sort
with
of
me, Peter
alternative
Coffin.
media people.
You've made
the
two
left of the Democrats, then.
videos about
Bernie
me.
Sanders and the people around him.
Two videos. This
You get invited to talk on
I
someone's
only did
show,
one video
and they ask
about
you what the
Peter
left
Coffin.
thinks, and you immediately start talking about Vosh. Aren't you embarrassed?
Chilby, how are you? Meow.
Peter has also been quick to seize on opportunities to claim false flag attacks within the war zones, claiming that a theater in Mariupol, a city indisputably
It's sad the path George Galloway went down.
shelled by Russian military forces, was supposedly blown up by Ukrainian neo-Nazis instead to make Putin look worse or something. Maupin, of course, has been non-stop on the war, as any other political content creator, with such thrilling releases as "Why should American working people support Russia?" "Do not donate to Ukraine," and probably the most unhinged video I've seen from Caleb, and that's saying something, breaking down Putin's Ukraine speech.
Go and watch Putin's speech for yourself.
It's so good. It's
right?
it's a work
It
of
was
art.
a great speech, and for a while they were showing it on
Really?
CNN,
Okay.
and they were like, "Oh shit, kill it! People in America might hear this and realize."
It's too fucking based. It's too based. Putin is too based. That's the problem. You can't have the Americans hear it. They're gonna be like, whoa, yeah, Russia really should invade Ukraine. You go, Putin. You go.
Not only that he actually has a lot of very good points, but also that our leaders are fucking and Putin's a genius.
In the video, Caleb condescendingly tells his
excuse
audience
me.
5 times in a row that Stalin wasn't Russian.
Excuse me. Excuse me, Caleb Maupin. That's not a very nice word to say, okay? Now, I know you may have seen my video on your friend, Peter Coffin. And you might have seen, Caleb, what I ended up calling Peter Coffin. As I recall, Caleb, I referred to them as a super meanie butt. Don't make me use that on you. Okay? Continue.
Stalin wasn't Russian. Yeah, I know that's a shocker, right? How can Stalin
Continue.
not be Russian? He was the leader of the Soviet Union. Stalin wasn't Russian. Stalin was not Russian. Stalin wasn't Russian. Stalin was Georgian.
Insists Putin's obvious anti-communism is actually a huge win for communists.
Caleb
And
very
it wasn't
angry.
a communist speech, per se, but the
But-
speech said a lot of things that a communist could agree with.
Claims that the USSR invented Ukraine.
Putin remarked, he said, it's so
What?
funny that these people that are Ukrainian
Oh,
nationalists are constantly talking about decommunization. Because there wouldn't be a Ukraine if it weren't for communism. Lenin, the guy who created modern Ukraine, they're tearing down all the statues to him. They're tearing down all the statues to Lenin. And they're tearing
Putin hates like every Soviet
down all
leader.
the statues
Also, Putin hates Stalin.
to Stalin. And they're tearing down all the Soviet memorials. And
Oh, the flotilla.
again, there would not be a modern Ukraine if it weren't for the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union designed it. And he said, so these people really want to decommunize. Maybe we will. And he was hinting at the fact that, if these people really, really want to completely decommunize, then they'll be absorbed back into Russia. And what Putin argued in his speech is that belief that all nations have the right to national liberation, he took it a bit too far.
What? Oh, I thought that was real.
For absolutely no reason, Maupin stops himself from saying that Lenin was Russian.
Okay. This guy. Am I right, chat? Am I right? This guy. That's it, just this guy. That's all I had to say.
To speculate about Lenin's possible Jewish ancestry.
Because Lenin was a Russian. And Lenin was a Russian. He had some Jewish heritage, but he was ethnically Russian.
Lenin was Russian. Well, a bit Jewish, but he was still Russian. He claims that the Ukrainian people didn't even have written language before the USSR.
And giving them their own, and these people, they
This
wouldn't even have
guy.
their own, a lot of them wouldn't have their own written language if it wasn't for the Bolsheviks.
And that Stalin built all their
what?
infrastructure and
No. Wait.
Look, I know he's not being literal, but it has to be said. Stalin didn't build fucking any.
Who wouldn't have a written language? Who did he say wouldn't have a written language if it weren't for the Bolsheviks? What is that about? Why did he even have to mention that? I know, right?
Thing, Caleb. Ukrainian workers
clown
built all
pill.
that stuff, and this is typical of Maupin's great man approach to history, which is just so hysterically anti-communist. His point, as far as I can follow it, is that Ukrainian people are ungrateful for the USSR inventing them and
A
giving them all
language?
their technology, including written language.
Written language? You didn't
Therefore,
have that
they should,
before? Sorry.
Just be Russian instead.
You would just
And it needs to
be
said, the
communicating
conspiracy
through
left's denial
what?
First of the invasion, and then of the violence against civilians, pivoting into justifications for why the invasion and the violence are good, actually, is exactly what the victims of
Meow.
misinformation and within Russia are hearing as well. And I also need to say, I know some people will go from what I've been saying, the focus on Russia today, the blindly pro-Putin takes on Ukraine, and say that the people in the conspiracy left are funded by the Russian government. And I want to try and avoid that accusation because it's not something we have evidence for. These guys are cranks, they suck, they spread ridiculous misinformation, but beyond some of them working for RT directly, I don't think there's any kind of underhanded
No, I want to put on my
secret funding
tinfoil
going on.
hat
I
and
don't
just
think
start to
these people are
hypothesize,
secretly
chat.
paid by the Russian.
Do we get to make some copy pasta about these people? Do we get to... Peter Coffin, who's literally made copy pasta about me, do I get to make some copy pasta about them? Is that something that I deserve? Without the Soviet Union, they would just be relying on cave paintings. I know, right? You know, some kind of stone tablet that they would pass around. I don't know. Even that, right? Trying to... Oh my god. Oh my god. Caleb strikes me as a ranting, raving, disheveled uncle. at their reunion that talks about aliens or Pizzagate or some such clownery while trying to cob a feel on your mom. Oh no. Well, I mean, my mom, I don't know.
And I'll tell you what.
No, I don't think my mom would like kill a
Alex Jones
Maupin.
is defending
I don't
the
think my mom
invasion
would
as
like.
well. There's a sizable
Would want
audience
that.
who want to mistrust everything the American government does for some good reasons and some bad ones. And Alex Jones and the conspiracy left all cater toward them. And to that end, Jones has been sharing
Meow.
a conspiracy theory popular in Russia and China that there are bioweapon development labs in Ukraine which are funded by the West, which Putin wants to seize. And by extension, possibly because those labs are where they manufactured the coronavirus. And the conspiracy
Clown
left are
Coffin. I
sharing
was like
the
trying to figure it
same
out for a
theory.
second. I was like,
Maupin
what is that?
sharing it. Peter Coffin is
Clown
retweeting
chocolate
Maupin sharing
bar?
it. Has one of the few
Oh my
Maupinist
God.
disciples is sharing it. George Galloway produced a whole segment talking about it. On the American right, of course, it's much more popular to talk about the possibility of coronavirus being manufactured, but among the conspiracy left, their main focus of this story is the possibility of, and this is their term, not mine, weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine.
That documents and other evidence have been found very close to the Russian border.
The only thing you have to worry about with me, okay, is weapons of mass masturbation.
Of a full-scale,
by which I mean sex toys, of course.
Biological weapons laboratory that was manufacturing and stockpiling weapons of mass destruction in the Ukraine.
Not to say that none of them are claiming coronavirus was made in a lab. Jimmy Dore, of course, is absolutely saying that on Moats with George Galloway.
And so who aren't you allowed to? And so now they get to decide what's true.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. Chat. This guy. This one right here. Jimmy Dore, what in the earth possessed you to wear that hat? You look ridiculous. And you're Jimmy Dore. You always look ridiculous. But this time you look more ridiculous than usual. What in God's name? Who sold you that hat? I cannot possibly conceive of what possessed Jimmy Dore. Is it because Max Galloway wears a hat and he just like, okay, I'm gonna get a hat and be on there and be cool like Galloway? Is that what he's thinking? I really don't get it. I really don't understand. Jimmy Dore. This guy.
It's just around the coronavirus that turned out to be false. That you weren't allowed to question. You weren't allowed to question if the virus came from a lab.
I'm so done. I've got no words left. This essay is already 40 pages long. To be clear about this, there are biological
They're detectives, so that we know that they're smart and they
much like KGB propaganda, the US was
and that they do their own research.
Mosquitoes for biological warfare in the 80s.
Mosquitoes?
They're just pointing at fairly innocuous research facilities and claiming it's the center of a conspiracy. Alex Jones does this all the time with abortion facilities, claiming there are babies being kept alive for organ harvesting that good American patriots should go and liberate. This is the manufacturing of consent for an invasion, and it doesn't matter that they can point to a specific research facility, it's not a bio-warfare lab. Culture is not a monolith, but rather comprises the infinitesimal actions of individuals, many of them overtly positive, while contributing to an overall larger harmful pattern. American NGOs helping people start businesses in the imperial periphery are part of imperialism, and they are helping those people. US-funded labs in Ukraine stopping the spread of disease are part of imperialism and doing something uncomplicatedly good. But that doesn't make for as good a story.
Chat.
We might be bad, but...
Did I react harder today? I'm doing my best, White Nervosa, to react harder, okay? Before JXC makes a video about me, okay? And it's just like throws all kinds of salt my way. Right? I don't need that. I don't need that from JXC. Okay? I'm trying to react harder. Right? To share more of myself in each VOD than is like allowable in 47 states. But I happen to live in one of the 3 states where it is allowable. Hence, you get this unfiltered, unvarnished essence of Irene Geller that, like, no one else is privy to. What the fuck is wrong with me? Why am I talking like Vosh?
They're worse. The eternal projection of conspiracy theorists is driven by a need to prove that their enemy is the greater evil, and that's why they're directly copying the strategy the American media used to justify the war in Iraq. Yes, we're fearmongering about weapons of mass destruction to justify a vile and genocidal empire-building war, but our WMDs definitely exist for sure. When there's a war, these people tell you exactly who the fuck they are. They don't speak for the American working class. They don't speak for the Russian working class. They certainly don't speak for the Ukrainian working class. They don't speak for the working class anywhere. They just want to be the only ones their audience can listen to because everyone else is part of the globalist New World Order, and they don't care who it hurts or how much damage they do.
Vegas, baby.
Fire safety lesson, and this one is very important. Now, water can be very effective at stopping fires. I mean, it's basically the first thing we all think of when we see a fire. It works so well because it smothers the fire, depriving it of one of the two things it needs: oxygen. However, water isn't always good.
Because if there's oil,
if you see a
if there's
pan or pot
grease,
burning oil, just about the worst thing you could do
yes,
is pour water into it.
Yes,
when you pour water
it's
on a pan of burning oil, the water, which is denser than the oil, sinks to the bottom, where it superheats, turning into steam and propelling the burning oil out of the pan in what fire safety experts call an explosion. And that's how you burn down your house. The
Not
water
good.
doesn't feed the fire.
Not good.
It does help the fire travel much, much faster than it would otherwise be able to. Sometimes water is the right thing to put out a fire. Sometimes it's something else. But if you want to put out fires every time, you need something more powerful than water.
Gatorade!
A lot of the time,
No?
a large amount of well-intentioned
Am I
response
wrong?
to conspiracy theories is to try and combat them with facts. The thing is, facts and
Is
the
it not
truth
Gatorade?
aren't really the same thing.
I thought you
Lots of
needed
disparate facts can be
electrolytes.
used together to create a false understanding, and that's exactly what this
You
does.
really want to fight fire?
Twitter has started pulling these little blurbs on its trending topics with the hopes of combating conspiracy theories, and that's really stupid, because giving people this information will not and can never simply on its own dispel conspiracy theories. If anything, this is strengthening it.
Clearly, we
I would
need
go as far as to
re-education
say this is
camps. Yeah.
dangerously inept.
Good
Facts
call.
and the truth are different things,
Good
and the truth
call.
requires actually imparting
Good
an
call.
understanding to people.
Right?
Stories can be reflections.
Is that where we're going with
And
this?
facts help build stories, but the way an artist uses fiction to tell the truth, conspiracy theorists use facts to create fiction. So, for example, the Great Reset conspiracy theory
Or
won't be
fan
countered by
theory,
showing
if you
people what
will.
the World Economic Forum
Anti-fan theory.
Because the World Economic Forum is a neoliberal capitalist institution of
Meow,
American
meow,
imperialism,
meow.
and a lot of what it's doing
Chat, you're
is
so
genuinely
cute.
sinister.
Do you know that? Wait a
Reading
minute,
about
just a
it might help
second, just a
people-
second. Do you know how cute you are, chat? Do you know? Do you know how cute you are? Right now. Do you know how cute you are? In this exact moment. I'm cute, but you're cute. No, chat, you're cute. You're cute. Can we trick conspiracy theorists into incapacitating themselves? Like with what? Are you talking about like with like edibles? Trick them into like, be like, you know, I mean, like if you're not feeling anything yet, you should probably eat more edibles. Conspiracy theorists. You might need more edibles for it to even work. Sometimes it doesn't even work. Sometimes it doesn't even, you gotta reach a certain threshold. And maybe you're just not there yet, conspiracy theorists. You gotta go, oh my god, this is a bad idea. This is a bad idea. Yes, tell conspiracy theorists to take heroic doses of fucking edibles. That is not gonna end in misery and just instability and, what is the word? Malarkey. Malarkey. I was like malarkey. It's like the bad anarchy. No, malarkey. Yeah, that it would end in malarkey. That would result in malarkey. Oh my god, I'm cute. I'm tutu. Wait, is that a thing? thank you anyway. Rar. I don't know if that's a thing, but thank you for saying that I am super cute butt here. Not a super meanie butt. That was me earlier today. I think I was a super meanie butt, but now I'm a super cute butt, a super moe butt, if you will. Which, I mean, since you're here, I guess you'll indulge me in this, ridiculous diatribe that you just interrupting the video, which I should get back to right now. Yeah.
I believe Alex Jones's version of the Great Reset, where we're all in a Matrix-like simulation, but it won't help them to understand the way
It's a stupid idea. I don't know how to stop them.
The shape of the story that people believe in remains the same if you aren't imparting a different
Or live action
understanding.
cute.
Facts that agree with the conspiracy theory are fuel to the fire, and facts that disagree are all mainstream media lies.
Ghastly, meow.
And the problem with the conspiracy left is they aren't imparting a different understanding to people. Their understanding of the world is conspiracist, attributing malice and collusion to every party that they oppose, which increasingly is just every party that isn't them. I started this project in part because I saw a lot of people who haven't got much exposure to real communists or Marxists and conflate these people with Marxism, or call them tankies or red browns, and I don't think that's enough. The reason that the analysis is incomplete without pointing out conspiracist logics is that the bigotry of fascism is not like the bigotry of your man in the pub. Fascist bigotry is inherently esoteric, utilizing greater explanatory power than official, politically correct accounts and using stigmatized knowledge to spread that bigotry to others. Fascist bigotry is inherently conspiratorial. The reason these people are dangerous, though none of them have succeeded at it yet, is that even the most well-intentioned of them, hoping to use conspiracy theorist audiences to spread Marxist ideas, is getting up every day and trying to dump water on the oil fire. The real reason I find the methodology of creating conspiracy beliefs so lacking is that they assume there is a spectrum, and on one end lies a
You're like
person who believes
adorable
everything
though. You're seriously adorable. I'm sorry. I hate to keep harping on it. I hate to keep coming back to it, but you are indeed adorable. Meow.
they see on the news, and on the other lies someone who believes in conspiracy theories. And the truth is, more often than not, these are the same person. Skepticism is good. A critical, analytical approach to what you're being told is good, and more often than not, conspiracy theorists are people who are already treating authority as truth and have just switched out one authority for another. These people have switched out America for Putin. So we should avoid platforming these people, sure, but there's more we need to talk about here, because this is about how popular socialist ideas are becoming. Enough people are coming around to socialist economics, understanding that it can really help them and the people they care about. Even prominent far-right figures are voicing anti-capitalist ideas, and on the other side of the gap, these people are trying to build an alliance with the far-right. They're organizing, they're getting together, they're meeting up in real life, and they're holding rallies.
Oh yes, yeah, I heard about
the
this.
CPI, or Center for Political Innovation, is Caleb Maupin's organization, which, as far as I can tell, is called the CPI, sometimes styled as the CPI USA, to just riff on the branding of the CP USA, because Caleb conceptualizes himself as a modern LaRouche, splitting from the Communist Party of the USA and trying to
He really
steal their
does,
membership.
yeah.
The so-called
Have that
American
in mind.
in its entirety cannot be redeemed.
It's infrared! It's hot! He went from one of the better lefty video essayists on YouTube to a total class reductionist, wacky Maupinite in like the space of 2 years. Yeah, that's, it is kind of weird. I don't know, like, here's the problem, okay? I feel like I didn't give Peter Coffin a chance. Like, I'm glad, because, you know, he ended up being bad, but I didn't give Peter Coffin a chance because there's something about their personality that like grates on me, right? And that's not a good reason to criticize somebody. That's not a critique. That's just, you know, aesthetics or whatever, or like preference or whatever. There's no reason to be mean about it, right? Is what I'm saying. Okay, and I'll try to be mean here by dunking on Coffin's personality or anything like that. But, you know, so because of that, I never really got, like, you know, into Coffin in the first place. I think I might have commented on one of their videos and they replied to me and they were so salty, and it just helped me really not like them. And so, like, I never went through a Peter Coffin phase, right? And I get that they were like a little different back in the day, but oh my god, there's just something like sus about them. Something sus. Completely sus. CPI and NPI. COVID brain rot is real. See Haas. It sounds neoliberal. Yeah. Or the. Did their wives leave them before or after they changed? Good question. That's a really good question. That is a really good question, right? When somebody in social media is acting like they got left by a significant other, you really gotta question, you know, what's going on with that person.
Whatsoever.
You really gotta question that.
Can build something from scratch, but we should cease to see leftists as a reservoir from which we should attempt to draw support.
Here is Keaton Mansfield, the central CPI figure, interrupting a DSA conference to yell at AOC. Here is Keaton Mansfield holding a Z symbol at the opening of the CPI conference. And here he is wishing he was
Oh my
Pope
god,
so that he could raise a holy army to fight for Russia
guys,
in Ukraine.
These guys.
Which he says is a new holy war and modern day crusade.
And I also put the Orthodox cross because this is a holy crusade. I wish I was Pope for many
just one day,
reasons, I suppose, but primarily right
more than
now
one day,
because I would
more than one day,
Pope, or at least could speak.
I really wouldn't want to be Pope ever, but if I had to be Pope, I would want to be Pope for a day.
Raise a crusading army for the Vatican of any Catholic male who is between the ages of 18 and 35, and we would go launch a crusade against Ukraine.
See, Maupin and his orbiters espouse an ideology that they call patriotic American socialism.
Patriotics?
There's a whole book someone could write about why this is a fucking
This is so
idea.
good. This is
Maybe
so
someone already
bad.
has, actually.
It seems to happen around the same time. It's so hard to know what was going on behind the scenes. If they were crapping up first, leading to their separation. Oh, you're right. Actually, oh, wow. Yeah, you're right. You're right. There was like a kind of, I forgot about the, breakup between Peter and Angie Coffin.
Okay, no, political theory nerds, here's a great niche for someone here.
Yeah, it seems like a bad job.
I will say someone holding up the flag of the USSR.
Like, can you imagine what kind of paperwork the Pope has to do?
The US together doesn't
How many papers the Pope has to sign?
to me. If anything,
You're sitting there all day fucking signing papers, being like, what does this one do?
The original Nazbols were people from the Tsarist army in the Russian Civil War who defected to the Red Army.
What am I
when they saw
signing?
which side was
Okay.
winning, and convinced
What is
themselves
this
they could
one?
support
Okay.
communism as the next
What is
big
this one?
era
Wait,
of
that one
Russian
sounds sus. Are you sure?
Nazbols saw Stalin's theory of socialism in one country as a victory for their beliefs, and Nazbols are class enemies of people building a real communist society. Oh, and that's not me saying that, just to be clear. That's something someone in 1922 said. A little-known public speaker called Vladimir Ilyich Ulyanov, or Lenin. But a real Marxist like Caleb Maupin wouldn't want to hear what he had to say. He was a bit Jewish, after all. I want to get preachy for a bit. Progressive communists of different tendencies need to have solidarity.
Nice burn, Sophie. Nice burn.
We need to together and we need to work together, because in different places with different material conditions and different popularities of different tendencies, we all share the same class enemies, and we all are working towards the same thing. Conspiracy
You're
theories
back.
reflect intergroup social conflicts, and there really is a division, a culture war within classes and stoked by ruling class manipulations, the woke and the anti-woke. However, Tons of young people online are quickly realizing that this situation, these divisions, this oppression cannot be resolved unless and until the existential threat to the oppressed is defeated. And if you say, I'll stand with people who oppose abortion, I support trans people, but I'll have solidarity with and organize with the people who are trying to exterminate them, you aren't impartial, you aren't movement building, you aren't having solidarity with your comrades, you are siding with oppression, and you are making your movement irrelevant. This isn't the same as helping people who have reactionary views. Unions and organizations don't kick people out for believing shitty things. Unions and organizations don't deny people help for believing shitty things. But someone who storms out of a union meeting because they ask people's pronouns isn't someone you can organize with. They're too sensitive. And someone who supports genocidal regimes in places like Texas against trans people isn't someone I could ever call a comrade, unless and until their understanding of the world fundamentally changes. These audiences cannot be reached out to through conspiracism, because what they are trying to emotionally defend with their conspiracism is bigotry, and for those purposes, the belief in coming change, the revolution, the civil war, breakaway civilization, the storm, day of the rope, is just millennialism. The coming storm is just another reason to disregard social progressivism in order to prepare more efficiently. Social progressivism is, after all, just another tool of neoliberal social control. It does suck to see someone who doesn't understand socialist theory or world history or even geopolitics today become someone that people turn to for leftist analysis, but calling them CIA really doesn't help anyone, and I would rather people were watching the most moderate, liberal breadtuber than the openly Nazi shit that dominated the space before. If people who care about marginalized people and understand socialism work together, we can create a rich and dynamic space for progressive leftism, and hopefully raise the standard of education that people expect from their political content creators, and then maybe we won't have content creators who call themselves socialists, who are openly thirsty for America to invade countries in the global south. We need to have—
Wait, Destiny replied to with a video about the alt-right? I think Steven missed the point of that post? Wait, what? Am I missing part of chat? I'm calling them damsels? I hope it catches on. Oh, I see.
More intelligent discussion of leftist politics, and we need to have more discussion of the kind of world we would all like to live in. And maybe if we talk about the kind of world we'd like to live in, we can talk about how achievable it is. And maybe if we talk about how achievable it is, we can talk about how to get there. We have the capacity to produce everything we need.
Yeah. Not, I mean, patriotic socialist. Oh no. Oh no.
And the hungry are lacking more empty homes than there are people without shelter. We could end war, hunger, and poverty if we could
check out
see
the video.
that we are just one big family and start to
Maybe I'm
act
missing part of
like
chat.
it. We can't
I don't
treat
know.
that coming change, that shift, that revolution like a day of judgment for our allies to be vindicated and our enemies punished, because any story that simple is a comforting lie to get us to help kings make serfs of us into perpetuity. Workers of the world unite doesn't mean clinging to communist projects of the past. It means working together to build a future where no one is of more consequence than any other. Communism will never come from angry microphone boys in their bedroom teaching you arguments to make your racist uncle shit his pants, nor from guys in shirts and ties cosplaying Soviet apparatchiks. Socialism that isn't led by indigenous people, queer people, people of color, disabled people will never lead the way for the future, because the future will come from us feeding one another, sheltering one another, the ways that we will turn to one another for protection and care as the forever wars of the ruling class spin out of control. The future will come from us taking back society's fruits for society and no longer allowing anyone to declare society's creations theirs alone, from which they alone can profit. We have to organize, we have to have solidarity, we have to work together as progressive communists, because the people who want to change in regime, who see progressive values as holding them back, are organizing already. These people are actively harming our ability to advocate for a
Oh yeah,
world
she's
by
definitely
associating
taken a couple
communism
of
with frank conspiracism, Kremlin
she's definitely taken a couple of digs at the debate bros in this video.
and reactionary gibberish. The Russian war in Ukraine is an illegal war of aggression which has already killed thousands of civilians. And will
Wait. Oh, Steven replied to this video with a video about the alt-right?
for generations. And these people are making a ridiculous false dichotomy for leftists by insisting that you have to choose a side between US imperialism and Russian empire building. But a real socialist would say, no war but class war. And real activists are working in Ukraine right now to help refugees, not giving speeches in a conference room in Texas about how smart Vladimir Putin is. We just passed the point of no return for climate chaos. Climate scientists around the world got together to announce that we are
Oh yeah, and Destiny. Bosch and Destiny were
irreversible. And the thing about climate
very
change
much
is it's not going to kill us all in one big
dunked on.
catastrophic collapse. It's going to kill and is already killing the poorest people in the world first. People without the legal freedoms or resources to move are going to be the ones trapped in the harshest climates. Countries that don't have the money to build protective infrastructure are going to be the ones that see the biggest mass deaths, and imperialism is going to shape that because it's already the shape of global power. I am frustrated and angry, and I know that a lot of other people are too. I want to organize to change the way that our world works so that we can not just survive, but thrive as a society, thrive as a species, and even expand to new frontiers of exploration and discovery and human expression. And I know that we can do it, and I think other people are starting to realize that too, because the contradictions are sharpening, and people can't just look down and ignore them anymore. But to make the best world for everyone, the truth has to matter. The truth has to matter because the fucking planet is on fire, and a lot of people deny that, either explicitly or show in their actions that they don't really believe it. Whole countries, whole governments, our entire economic order is built on denying the obvious death we all face if the system is allowed to go on as it is. Nuclear war, climate change, even the pandemic would have killed fewer people on a communist fucking planet. People die every day because they don't have food or shelter, and that could literally not be the case. The truth has to matter because the planet is on fire, and only the truth can be used to fight fire.
This music is on point.
Out of the sewer, literal vampire potbelly goblins are hobbling around.
Oh my god, yes.
Literal vampire potbelly goblins.
Your mayor started an attack on the homeless in New York City.
Hey everyone, I was gonna do a
Oh
whole
my
bit
god.
here,
Yeah,
doing
so
Alex Jones and doing another animation, or Alex Jones.
let me give you the link to Sophie's channel. This is a really good video. If you're not already following Sophie from Mars on YouTube, let me help you do just that. And chat, I'm gonna call it an early one today, and I'll actually be in the Discord a little bit later, working on some content. I might even put this out. I'm thinking about putting this out just as a video, like, yeah. Oh, that means I need, oh no, that means I need a thumbnail. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get a thumbnail, it looks like. But I can do that. I'm a pro at thumbnails, as you all know. You know how good I am at thumbnails. I did one recently that was okay. It was okay, chat. It was okay. Okay. Anyway, chat, thank you very much for being here. Much love. Make sure to hit the like button if you have not already. And I will see you later. I'm gonna try to make a Twitch stream sometime. I haven't in a while, and I don't want to neglect that too much. So anyway, gotta play some video games, right? That's what Twitch is good for. Much love. And goodbye.